The school principal called me at work. Your daughter is in my office. She's been expelled, come get her. I said, I don't have a daughter. They just repeated, please come now. When I arrived and walked into the office, I froze. Sitting there crying was, Chapter 1, The Call. Clint McMahon was reviewing architectural blueprints for the downtown renovation project when his desk phone rang. At 42, he built McMahon Design Group from a one-man operation into the most sought-after architectural firm in the Pacific Northwest. His office overlooked Seattle's skyline, a testament to 15 years of 18-hour days and calculated risks. Clint McMahon, he answered, not looking up from the drawings. Mr. McMahon, this is Eleanor Spencer, principal at Lakewood Academy. Your daughter is in my office. She's been expelled. You need to come get her immediately. Clint's pencil stopped mid-stroke. I'm sorry. What? Your daughter, Carrie, she's been involved in a serious incident. Please come now, Miss Spencer. I don't have a daughter. I think there's been a mistake. The principal's voice turned sharp. Mr. McMahon, this is not the time for games. Carrie McMahon is sitting in my office right now, and she needs your father. Please come to the school. The line went dead. Clint stared at the phone. He'd been married to Kathleen for 12 years. They had no children, a source of quiet grief they'd both learned to live with after years of failed fertility treatments. He'd never had children with anyone else. This had to be an error. But something in Eleanor Spencer's voice, that brittle certainty, made him grab his keys. Lakewood Academy was a 30-minute drive through midday traffic. Clint's mind raced through possibilities. Identity theft, a scam, some kind of elaborate prank. His hands tightened on the steering wheel as he navigated the tree-lined streets leading to the exclusive private school. The principal's office smelled like old books and lemon polish. Eleanor Spencer stood as he entered. A severe woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. Mr. McMahon, thank you for coming. Then he saw her. The girl sat in a chair against the wall, hunched over with her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. She was maybe 14 or 15, with dark hair that fell past her shoulders. When she looked up at the sound of his voice, Clint felt the floor tilt beneath him. She had his eyes, that specific shade of hazel green that came from his mother's side. The same slightly crooked nose he'd broken playing baseball in high school. The same widow's peak hairline. Carrie, Eleanor said firmly. Your father is here. The girl's tear-stained face crumpled. Daddy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. They were saying things about Mom and I just. Clint held up a hand, his voice steady despite the earthquake in his chest. Miss Spencer, can I speak with you privately? Eleanor glanced at Carrie, then nodded. Carrie, wait outside my office. The girl fled and Clint heard her collapse onto the bench in the hallway, still crying. Miss Spencer, Clint said carefully. I need you to explain what's happening here. I've been married for 12 years. I have no children. I've never met that girl before in my life. Eleanor's expression shifted from stern to confused. She pulled a file from her desk. Carrie McMahon, age 15, enrolled here 3 months ago. Emergency contact and father listed as Clint McMahon, McMahon Design Group. She showed him the registration form. That was his signature. Her perfect forgery. And the mother? Clint asked, his voice dangerous. Eleanor checked the file. Kathleen McMahon. She filled out all the enrollment paperwork, paid the tuition in full. Kathleen, his wife. What did Carrie do? Clint asked. She broke another student's nose. The girl had been bullying her, apparently making comments about her mother's reputation. Carrie snapped during lunch and attacked her. It's a zero-tolerance situation. Carrie is expelled, effective immediately. Clint nodded slowly, his mind working through scenarios like an architect calculating load-bearing walls. I'll take her home. Thank you, Miss Spencer. In the hallway, Carrie stood as he approached. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. This girl was his daughter. But how? Get in the car, he said quietly. She followed him to the parking lot without speaking. Once they were both inside his BMW, doors closed, Clint turned to face her. I'm going to ask you questions and I need honest answers. Can you do that? Carrie nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. How old are you? 15. My birthday is December 3rd. Clint did the math. 15 years ago, December. That would put conception around March. 16 years ago, March 2009, the architecture conference in Portland. The memory hit him like a physical blow. He'd been 32, single, focused on building his career. There had been a woman at the hotel bar after the final day of presentations. They talked about design theory and urban planning. Too many drinks. One night, he never got her name. She'd been gone in the morning. Your mother, Clint said. What's her name? Kathleen McMahon. She said you guys got married later after I was born and before I was your father. What was your mother's last name? Carr's brow furrowed. I don't know. She never talks about before you guys got married. Clint pulled out his phone and opened his photo gallery. He found a picture from last month. Kathleen at a charity gala wearing a red dress. He showed it to Carrie. Is this your mother? Carrie shook her head. No, I've never seen her before. Clint's jaw clenched. Describe your mother to me. She's blonde, really pretty. She works at a doctor's office downtown. She's great usually, but lately she's been stressed about money. Not Kathleen, someone else entirely. Where do you live, Carrie? She gave him an address in a middle-class neighborhood south of the city, not anywhere near his house. I'm going to take you home now, Clint said, starting the engine. And I'm going to meet your mother. The drive took 25 minutes. Carrie directed him to a modest 2-story house with vinyl siding and an overgrown lawn. A silver Honda sat in the driveway. The woman who answered the door was indeed blonde and attractive, probably in her late 30s. When she saw Clint, her face went white. You, she whispered. Me, Clint confirmed. I think we need to talk. Carrie, go to your room. The woman whose name he would learn was Frances Carlson led him inside with trembling hands. Chapter 2. Pieces of the puzzle. Frances Carlson led Clint to a living room decorated with discount furniture and family photos. He noted Carrie's face appearing in frames from infancy through recent years, always with Frances, never with a father figure. I didn't know, Frances said before he could speak. She collapsed onto the couch, hands shaking. I swear to God, I didn't know any of this was happening. Start from the beginning, Clint said, remaining standing. Frances took a breath. Portland, March 2009. The Riverside Hotel. I remember I was there for a medical administration conference. You were charming, funny. We talked for hours and then she gestured helplessly. You were gone the morning. I didn't even know your last name. I tried to find you, but there were 300 architects at that conference and you got pregnant. I found out 6 weeks later. I decided to keep her, raised her alone. It wasn't easy, but we managed. Frances looked at him with something between anger and desperation. I never asked you for anything because I couldn't find you. Do you understand? I looked. I tried, but you just disappeared. Clint studied her. She seemed genuine. So, what changed? Why is Carrie enrolled at Lakewood Academy with my name as her father? That school costs $40,000 a year. Frances's face crumpled. I didn't enroll her. That's what I'm trying to tell you. 3 months ago, this woman showed up at my door. She knew everything. Your name, my name, Carrie's name. She said her name was Kathleen McMahon and that she was your wife. Clint's blood ran cold. She had photos of you, proof that you were successful, wealthy. She said Frances's voice broke. She said you'd finally acknowledge Carrie as your daughter and wanted to give her the life she deserved. She said you were too busy to reach out yourself, but you'd authorized her to handle everything. She enrolled Carrie at Lakewood, paid the tuition, said you'd be involved when your schedule allowed, and you believed her. She had documents, registration papers with your signature, bank statements showing the tuition payments coming from an account with your name on it. She seemed so legitimate, and Carrie was so happy finally having a father who cared, even if he was busy. I thought. Frances wiped her eyes. I thought maybe you'd found us somehow and wanted to help. Clint pulled out his phone and showed Frances the photo of Kathleen at the gala. Is this the woman? Frances nodded immediately. Yes, that's her. The pieces were sliding into place, but the picture they formed made no sense. Clint sat down heavily in the chair across from Frances. My wife's name is Kathleen McMahon, he said slowly. We've been married 12 years. We don't have children. She's never mentioned you or Carrie. And I swear on my life, I knew nothing about any of this until 2 hours ago when the school called me. Frances stared at him. But the tuition, the papers, she said it was all from you. It wasn't. They sat in silence, both trying to untangle the knot of deception. Why would your wife do this? Frances finally asked. That was the question. Clint stood and paced the small living room. Kathleen earned a good salary as a marketing executive, but not enough to casually spend $40,000 on a random teenager's education. Where had the money come from? I need to see everything, Clint said. Every document Kathleen gave you, every email, every text message. Frances retrieved a folder from a desk in the corner. Inside were enrollment forms, tuition receipts, and printouts of emails. All bearing his forged signature and details about his life that only someone close to him would know. Clint photographed everything with his phone. There's something else, Frances said quietly. Last week, Kathleen came by again. She seemed different, nervous. She said there might be some complications and that I should be prepared for Carrie to maybe switch schools. She asked if I had somewhere Carrie could stay for a while away from Seattle. She made it sound like you were having business problems. Might need to keep a low profile. Did she give me specifics? No, but she asked me to sign some papers. I didn't understand them. Something about custody arrangements and financial responsibility. She said it was just to protect Carrie if things got complicated with your business. Alarm bells rang in Clint's head. Do you have copies? She said she'd send them, but she never did. Clint stood. Francis, I know this is difficult to hear, but you and Carrie are being used in something. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to find out. You pulled out a business card. This is my personal cell number. Don't tell anyone I was here. If Kathleen, my wife, contacts you again, you call me immediately. Can you do that? Francis took the card with shaking hands. Is Carrie really your daughter? Clint looked toward the stairs where Carrie had disappeared. Genetically, almost certainly, but I didn't know she existed until today. I would have, he stopped, emotions threatening to overwhelm his calculated control. I would have been there if I'd known. What are you going to do? Find out what my wife is really up to and keep you and Carrie safe while I do it. He left Francis his information and a promise to be in touch. As he drove away from the modest house, Clint's mind was already 3 steps ahead. Kathleen had forged his signature, enrolled a child he didn't know he had in an expensive school, paid substantial tuition from God knows where, and was preparing Francis to take custody of Carrie in case of complications. This wasn't benevolence. This was a setup. Clint pulled over 2 blocks away in mid-call. Max, it's Clint. I need your help with something. Can you meet me at Murphy's in an hour? And Max, this one's going to be complicated. Max Jameson had been his friend since college. A software engineer who'd built 3 successful startups and sold them all before 40. More importantly, Max had the kind of analytical mind that could spot patterns others missed. At Murphy's pub, Clint laid out everything over 2 whiskeys neither of them touched. Max listened without interrupting, his angular face growing increasingly concerned. When Clint finished, Max leaned back and let out a low whistle. Your wife found your secret daughter and enrolled her in private school out of the goodness of her heart while forging your signature and lying to everyone involved. That's the story so far. Clint, this is a con, a big one. The question is, what's the endgame? That's what I need to figure out. Max pulled out his laptop. Give me 24 hours. I'll run financials on Kathleen, trace the tuition payments, see what I can dig up. In the meantime, you need to act normal at home. Don't let her know you're onto anything. Clint, check his watch. 6:30. Kathleen would be expecting him home for dinner. This is going to be harder than designing a skyscraper. Yeah, but the foundation's the same. You need to understand the structure before you know where to apply pressure. Max's expression turned serious. Clint, if she's forging documents and manipulating people, she's either desperate or planning something major. Maybe both. Watch her back. Clint drove home to the house he designed himself, a modern masterpiece of glass and wood overlooking Lake Washington. Kathleen's Mercedes was in a garage. Through the kitchen window, he could see her moving around, preparing dinner like she did every Tuesday. 12 years. How much of it had been real? He took a breath, locked away his anger, and walked inside. Chapter 3. The Mask. Hey, honey. You're late. Kathleen appeared from the kitchen. Still beautiful at 40. Her auburn hair swept up in a casual bun. She kissed his cheek. Rough day, project complications, Clint said smoothly. You know how clients can be. Over dinner, salmon, asparagus, wild rice. They talked about normal things. Her marketing campaign for a new restaurant chain, his meetings with contractors, the weather, surface conversations that had become their routine over the past year. Clint watched her carefully. Kathleen was animated, engaged, showing no signs of guilt or stress. Either she was innocent or she was a masterful actress. I was thinking, Kathleen said as she cleared the plates. Maybe we should take a trip to San Juan Islands like we used to. You've been working so hard and I feel like we haven't really connected in a while. That sounds nice. When were you thinking? Next month. I can request the time off. Next month. What happened next month? Was that when whatever she was planning would unfold? Let me check my schedule, Clint said. After dinner, Kathleen retreated to her home office to work on presentations. Clint went to his own study, closed the door, and opened his laptop. He'd met Kathleen at a gallery opening 13 years ago. She'd been working for a small marketing firm. He just landed his first major commission. Their courtship had been whirlwind. 6 months from first date to engagement. She'd supported his growing business, been understanding about the long hours, fit perfectly into his life. Or had she engineered her way into it? Clint pulled up their financial records. They had a joint checking account for household expenses, but maintained separate accounts for personal spending, an arrangement Kathleen had suggested early in their marriage, saying she valued her independence. Their joint account showed normal activity. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance. Nothing unusual, but that meant the $40,000 for Carrie's tuition had come from somewhere else. His phone buzzed with a text from Max. Found something. Tomorrow morning, my place. 9 a.m. bring coffee. Clint barely slept that night. Kathleen was pressed against him in bed, her breathing soft and steady. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about Francis and Carrie, about forged documents and mysterious payments, about what could drive someone to orchestrate such an elaborate deception. At 9 the next morning, Clint stood in Max's downtown loft with 2 cups of coffee and a sense of impending disaster. Max's workspace was organized chaos, 3 monitors, server racks, and enough computing power to run a small country. He took the coffee without looking up. Your wife, Max said, is in serious financial trouble. He pulled up screens showing bank records, credit reports, loan documents. She's got 6 credit cards maxed out to the tune of $200,000. Personal loans from 3 different banks totaling another $150,000. A line of credit against her car that's about to default. Clint felt his stomach drop. How did I not know this? Because it's all hidden in personal accounts you don't have access to. She's been very careful. Max pulled up another screen. But here's where it gets interesting. 6 months ago, she opened a new bank account. That's where the tuition payments for Carrie came from. Where the money come from? That's the question because I can't find the source. The deposits are cash made at different branches around the city. $40,000 deposited over 2 months, then transferred directly to Lakewood Academy. $40,000 in cash. Where would Kathleen get that kind of money? Either she's dealing drugs, Max said, or someone gave it to her. But that's not even the weird part. He pulled up a document. 3 weeks ago, she met with a lawyer. Carlton McCabe, estate planning specialist. Clint knew that name. Carlton McCabe handled high net worth clients, people planning complex trusts and inheritance strategies. Why would Kathleen need estate planning? We already have wills. Max's expression was grim. I can't access the details of her meeting, but I made a call to a friend who works at that firm. Kathleen inquired about life insurance policies and beneficiary designations, specifically about what happens to benefits if a spouse dies suddenly. The room seemed to tilt. You're saying she's planning to kill me? I'm saying she's exploring scenarios where you're dead. Whether she's planning it or just preparing for it, I don't know. But combined with everything else, Max met his eyes. Clint, you need to consider the possibility that this whole thing with Carrie is about setting up a motive or creating a situation that benefits Kathleen when you're gone. Clint sat down heavily. His mind raced through the implications. Carrie appears claiming to be his daughter. Kathleen helps by enrolling her in school, forging his signature. If the truth came out publicly, it would be a scandal. Successful architect with a secret love child. His reputation would take a hit. His business might suffer. But worse, if something happened to him and Carrie was legally established as his daughter, she'd be entitled to part of his estate, which meant Francis would control a significant portion of his wealth as Carrie's legal guardian, unless Kathleen had gotten Francis to sign custody documents. The papers Francis mentioned custody arrangements and financial responsibility. If Kathleen had Frank sign over custody of Carrie and then Clint died, Kathleen would control Carrie's inheritance as her legal guardian. Add in life insurance policies and Kathleen could pay off her debts and then some. She's staging a con, Clint said slowly. Carrie is real, my actual daughter, but Kathleen's using her as a chess piece. She establishes Carrie's paternity, gets Francis to sign over custody. Then I have an unfortunate accident. Carrie inherits. Kathleen controls the inheritance as her guardian and pays off her $350,000 in debt with plenty left over. Max finished. Hell of a plan. Except she doesn't know that I know. Max grinned. The same expression he'd worn before launching each of his startups. So, what's our move? Clint stood, his mind already assembling the pieces. First, I need proof. Real evidence that will hold up. Second, I need to protect Carrie and Francis. They're victims in this. Third, I need to figure out who gave Kathleen that $40,000 in cash. You think someone's helping her? I think someone's orchestrating this. Kathleen's smart, but this level of planning, the forged documents, the legal angles, the timing. She didn't come up with this alone. I'll keep digging into the financials. Max said, "What are you going to do?" Clint thought about his daughter, a girl he just learned existed, crying in a principal's office. About Francis, manipulated and frightened. About Kathleen sleeping next to him while plotting his death. "I'm going to play along," Clint said. "Let Kathleen think everything's going according to plan. And while she's setting her trap, I'm going to build a better one." Chapter 4. Digging Deeper. Clint hired Bruce Everett. 3 days later, Bruce ran a private investigation firm that specialized in domestic cases. Discreet, thorough, and expensive. They met at a coffee shop in Tacoma, far enough from Seattle that no one would recognize Clint. Bruce was a compact man in his 50s with gray hair and the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades watching people at their worst. He listened to Clint's story without judgment, taking occasional notes on a leather pad. "You want surveillance on your wife," Bruce said when Clint finished. "I want to know where that cash came from, who she's meeting with, and what she's planning. I need evidence that will stand up in court." Court meaning divorce or court meaning criminal charges. Could be both depending on what you find. Bruce quoted a daily rate that made Clint was even with his wealth. "But given what's at stake, your life potentially, I'd say it's a bargain. I can start tomorrow." "One more thing," Clint said. "My daughter Carrie, she's 15, thinks I'm a deadbeat dad who's finally paying attention. I need someone to keep an eye on her and her mother. Make sure they're safe. Kathleen might decide they're loose ends." Bruce's expression darkened. "You think she'd hurt the girl?" "I think she'd do whatever it takes to close the deal. And right now, Karen and Francis are witnesses to fraud. Maybe worse. I'll assign my best surveillance team. They won't know they're being watched." Over the next 10 days, Clint lived a double life. At home, he was the attentive husband, discussing Kathleen's work projects and planning their San Juan Islands trip. At the office, he buried himself in work while waiting for Bruce's reports. Meanwhile, Max dug deeper into the financial trail. He discovered that Kathleen had taken out a life insurance policy on Clint 3 months earlier. $1 million policy she'd forged a signature to authorize the beneficiary, Kathleen McMahon. "She's got you insured like a prize racehorse," Max said over lunch at a waterfront restaurant. "Along with your existing policies, she's looking at a $3 million payday when you die. Not to mention my share of the firm, the house, the investment accounts," Clint added. "She could clear $5 million easy. How's she planning to do it? Make it look like an accident." "Couldn't have been thinking about that. The San Juan Islands trip next month. Remote location, ocean access, plenty of places for a tragic boating accident or a hiking mishap." "You're still planning to go?" "I'm planning to let her think I'm going. By then, I'll have enough evidence to bury her." Bruce's first major report came on day 8. He followed Kathleen to a cafe in Bellevue where she met with a man Bruce had photographed and identified: Randall Austin. Clint stared at the photo spread across his desk. Randall Austin was 45, conventionally handsome in a slick way with styled hair and expensive clothes. In the photos, he and Kathleen sat close together, her hand on his arm, their body language intimate. "He's a pharmaceutical sales rep," Bruce explained. "Makes good money, but he's also got a gambling problem. Owes about $200,000 to some very unpleasant people. So, he and Kathleen are in debt, and I'm their solution. It gets better." Bruce pulled out more photos. "I followed Austin after his meeting with your wife. He drove to an office building downtown and met with this man." The next photo showed Randall talking with another man in a parking garage. The second man was balding, nervous looking, holding a briefcase. "That's Lester Clayton. He's a lawyer, the disbarred kind. Lost his license 5 years ago for fabricating evidence in a divorce case. Now he works in the gray areas. Document forgery, false identities, helping people disappear. The pieces click together. Lester forged my signature on the school documents. Probably the insurance policy, too. That would be my guess. And here's the timeline. Kathleen starts her affair with Randall about 18 months ago, right around when you told her you wanted to expand the business, which would have meant more wealth down the line, but also more work in the present. 6 months later, they're both drowning in debt. They need a solution. So, they come up with the perfect crime. Clint said, "Frame me as a deadbeat dad who abandoned his kid, establish Carrie as my legal daughter, get custody through fraudulent means, kill me, and split my estate." Except they needed startup capital to make it work. The $40,000 for tuition, money to pay Lester, living expenses while they set everything up. Bruce pulled out bank statements. "I tracked the cash deposits. Rand made them, not Kathleen. He got the money from a business partner, a guy he imports pharmaceuticals with. They've got a side operation bringing in prescription drugs from Canada and selling them under the table. Illegal drug sales funded my fake death. Life's funny that way. Bruce's expression turned serious. But here's the part that should really worry you. I checked Austin's phone records. He's sloppy about security. 2 days ago, he called someone at Lakewood Academy. Didn't talk long, but I got the number and traced it. Who? Eleanor Spencer's administrative assistant. And yesterday, Carrie got expelled. Clint felt ice in his veins. They orchestrated the expulsion. The bullying was real. I confirmed that with the other girl's parents, but I think they manipulated the situation, made sure it escalated into violence. They wanted Carrie expelled so you'd get that phone call. They wanted you to meet your daughter under the worst possible circumstances to establish the relationship so when I die, Carrie's established as my legal daughter. But why would they want me to know about her before I die? Bruce leaned back in his chair. Because if you die and then a secret daughter appears, it looks suspicious. But if you've already acknowledged her, already started supporting her, even if it's through your wife, then her inheritance claim is much stronger. No questions about DNA, no legal battles, just a tragic situation where a father dies after finally connecting with his kid. So, I was supposed to meet Carrie, feel guilty about abandoning her and start a relationship, maybe even change my will to include her, and then have that tragic accident in the San Juan Islands. But here's the good news. Bruce pulled out a USB drive. I've got everything documented. Photos of Kathleen and Randall, financial records showing the illegal drug money, audio recordings of their conversations. Randall's terrible about OP-SEC. Leaves his phone unlocked everywhere and connections to Lester Clayton. It's enough to charge them with conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and possibly attempted murder if they make a move. Clint took the drive, his mind already planning the next steps. I need more time. I want to know if there are other players involved, and I want to make sure Carrie and Francis are completely protected before this blows up. How long? 2 weeks. Can you keep surveillance going? Your money, your timeline. But Clint, these people are planning to kill you. 2 weeks is a long time to sleep next to someone who wants you dead. I'll be careful, and I'll make sure I'm never anywhere vulnerable with her. That night, Clint lay awake again, listening to Kathleen breathe beside him. He thought about the first time they'd met, the whirlwind romance, the wedding where she'd cried happy tears. Had any of it been real, or had she been playing a long game from the start? His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is my dad really you? Carrie Francis must have given her his number. He texted back. Yes. It's complicated, but yes. We'll talk soon. Are you okay? I'm scared. Mom says we might have to move. She's acting weird. You're safe. I promise. Just do what your mom says and don't tell anyone we're talking. Okay. Okay. Will I see you again? Clint stared at the ceiling, thinking about a daughter he just learned existed. A daughter caught in the crossfire of someone else's greed. Yes, soon. I promise. He put the phone away and formulated the next phase of his plan. Chapter 5. The Ally. Clint called Carlton McCabe the next morning from his car, parked in a lot across from a construction site. The lawyer answered on the third ring. Carlton, it's Clint McMahon. We met at the Architectural Digest Gala last year. Of course, Clint, what can I do for you? My wife had a consultation with you recently. I'd like to discuss our estate planning. There was a pause. Carlton was good at his job. He heard the weight behind the casual words. I'm free this afternoon. 3 o'clock. Carlton's office was in a glass tower downtown, tastefully decorated with art that spoke of old money and discretion. The lawyer himself was 60, distinguished with silver hair and the calm demeanor of someone who'd handled countless sensitive situations. Before we begin, Carlton said I should mention that attorney-client privilege applies to your wife's consultation. I can't reveal what we discussed. I'm not asking you to, Clint said. He pulled out the USB drive from Bruce and set it on the desk. I'm asking you to help me stop her from committing murder. Carlton's eyebrows rose. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a situation. Clint spent the next hour laying out everything he'd discovered. Carlton listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly grave. When Clint finished, Carlton sat back in his leather chair. Your wife came to me asking about estate structures and life insurance benefits in the event of your death. She claimed it was standard planning given your wealth. I had no reason to suspect otherwise. He looked at the USB drive. May I? Everything's documented. Carlton reviewed the files on his laptop. His face impassive. Finally, he looked up. This is conspiracy to commit fraud and possibly murder. You need to go to the police. Not yet. The moment I do, Kathleen and Randall will lawyer up and the whole thing becomes she said. I need them to make their move to show clear intent to harm me. Only then can I guarantee they'll go to prison. That's extraordinarily dangerous. That's why I need a lawyer. I need someone who can protect my assets, prepare documentation that will stand up in court and act quickly when this goes public. I also need someone to help me structure a trust for Carrie that Kathleen can never touch. Carlton was quiet for a long moment. You understand? I'd be working against your wife's interests. My wife is planning to kill me. I don't care about her interests. Fair point. Carlton pulled out a legal pad. Let's talk about what you need. They spent 3 hours building a legal fortress. Carlton would prepare new documentation naming Carrie as Clint's daughter and establishing a trust for her education and care with Francis as trustee until Carrie turned 18. He'd also prepare divorce papers, restraining orders, and criminal complaints ready to file the moment Clint gave the word. I'll have everything ready in 1 week, Carlton said. But Clint, you're taking a tremendous risk letting this play out. I know, but I need Kathleen to think she's winning right up until the moment I pull the trap door. Clint's next stop was Francis's house. She answered, looking exhausted, worry lines creasing her forehead. Is Carrie home? Clint asked. School well. Her new school. I had to transfer her to the public school district after the expulsion. She's struggling. I know. That's part of why I'm here. Clint came inside. Francis, I need to explain what's really happening. He told her everything. Kathleen's affair, the conspiracy, the plan to kill him, the fake custody documents. Francis's face went through shock, horror, and finally anger. She used my daughter. She used Carrie as bait in a murder plot. Yes. And now I need your help to protect both of you and take her down. Whatever you need. First, I need you to be careful. Don't trust anything Kathleen tells you. If she contacts you again, record it if you can and call me immediately. Second, I need you to sign these. He pulled out document. Carlton had prepared real custody documents that ensure if anything happens to me, Carrie stays with you and has access to a trust I'm setting up. You'd be the trustee. Francis's hands shook as she read through the papers. You're setting up a trust for her? She's my daughter. I missed 15 years, but I won't miss her future. Clint met her eyes. I'm sorry for all of this. If I'd known about you, about Carrie, you would have been there. Francis finished. I know. I can see that now. She looks like you know, not just physically. The way she thinks about things, solves problems. She's an architect in the making. Something warm and painful squeezed Clint's chest. A daughter. He had a daughter. When this is over, he said, I'd like to get to know her. Really know her if that's okay with you. Francis smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. I think she'd like that. They spent another hour discussing safety protocols. Clint gave Francis a prepaid phone to use only for contacting him. He arranged for Bruce's team to maintain surveillance on her house. He transferred $50,000 to her account for expenses and lawyer fees if you need them. I can't accept this, Francis protested. You can and you will. This is my fault. I brought this into your life. Let me protect you. Before he left, Carrie came home from school. She froze when she saw Clint in the living room. Hey, Clint said suddenly unsure. How did you talk to a daughter you just discovered? Hey, Carrie sat down her backpack, studying him with those familiar eyes. Are you really my dad? Yeah, I really am. Did you know about me before? Before the school thing, Clint sat down, gesturing for her to join him. No, I swear I didn't. Your mom and I met one night a long time ago, and I left the next morning like an idiot. I didn't even know her name. If I had known about you, he struggled for words. I would have been there. Every birthday, every school play, every important moment. I missed all of that and I can never get it back. But I'm here now. Carr's eyes filled with tears. That lady, Kathleen, she said you didn't want people to know about me because it would hurt your business. Kathleen lied about a lot of things. She's not a good person, Carrie. She seemed nice. Carrie said softly. I know. She fooled me for 12 years. They talked for another hour. Carrie told him about school, her friends, her love of drawing and design. Clint showed her photos of some of his buildings, explained how architecture worked, promised to take her to see his projects. When he finally left, driving back toward downtown and the life he was about to burn down, Clint felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose beyond work. He had a daughter to protect, and he'd burn the world down before he let Kathleen and Randall hurt her. His phone rang. Max, I found something else, Max said without preamble. Randall Austin has a third partner, someone who's been helping with the pharmaceutical smuggling. Who? A shipping coordinator named Gumo Shoemaker. Works at the port of Seattle. He's been helping Randall get containers through customs without inspection. And here's the interesting part. Guo has a boat, a 40-foot yacht he keeps at the marina. Clint felt his pulse quicken. The San Juan Islands. That's what I thought. I pulled harbor records. Guillermo's been mapping routes through the islands for the past month. Routes that pass through some very remote areas with deep water. They're not just planning a boating accident. They're planning to make my body disappear. Looks that way. I'm sending you the route maps. Clint, you can't get on that boat. I'm not planning to, but I'm planning to make them think I will. Chapter 6. The Spring Titans. 2 weeks before the planned San Juan Islands trip, Kathleen became increasingly affectionate. She cooked Clint's favorite meals, suggested they watch movies, cuddled on the couch, initiated sex more often than she had in the past year. She was sealing the deal, making sure he'd go on the trip. I can't wait to get away, Kathleen said one evening, her head on his shoulder. Just the two of us. No work, no stress. Like it used to be. It'll be good, Clint agreed, stroking her hair while his mind calculated angles and evidence. Bruce's surveillance had captured multiple meetings between Kathleen and Randall. In one recording, they discussed timing. The third day, Randall said, we'll be far enough out that it'll take hours for anyone to respond. Gumo will make it quick, hit him on the head, weight him down, deep water. Sharks will do the rest. And if they find the body, Kathleen's voice, they won't. But even if they do, it'll look like he fell overboard and drowned. Tragic accident. You'll be the grieving widow. What about Carrie? What about her? She's just a kid. She'll believe what we tell her. And Francis will be grateful for the trust fund. Everyone wins. Listening to the recording in Carlton's office, Clint felt his anger crystallize into something cold and precise. They weren't just planning to kill him. They were planning to use his daughter's grief as cover. That's conspiracy to commit murder. Carlton said, you have enough to go to the police now. Not yet. I need them to actually try it. Otherwise, a good lawyer could argue they were just fantasizing, not planning. I need them on that boat making their move with multiple witnesses. You're insane. Maybe, but I'm right. Carlton sighed. Fine. What's your plan? Clint laid it out. Carlton would be in the San Juan Islands the same weekend, staying at a resort on San Juan Island itself. Bruce and his team would also be in the area posing as tourists. Max would monitor all communications remotely. The Coast Guard would be notified to have boats in the area ready to respond to an emergency beacon, and you'll be wearing a wire, Carlton added. Obviously, and carrying a weapon. I'd rather not kill my wife if I can avoid it. Clint, if they come at you with intent to kill, you have the right to defend yourself. I know, but I want them alive to face justice. I want Carrie to know her father didn't become a murderer, even when he had cause. The week before the trip, Kathleen sat Clint down with travel documents. About everything planned, we'll drive up Friday, take the ferry Saturday morning. Guo, he's Randall's friend, remember, has offered to let us use his boat for the day. We can explore the islands, have lunch at a secluded beach. It'll be perfect, Randall's friend. She wasn't even hiding the connection anymore, confident that Clint suspected nothing. Sounds great, Clint said, signing the documents she'd prepared a last will and testament update that would make Kathleen his primary beneficiary and named Carrie as a secondary beneficiary. Of course, Kathleen didn't know that Carlton had already filed a different will, one that protected everything and designated Kathleen would get nothing. 3 days before the trip, Carrie texted him. Mom's acting weird again. She keeps asking me questions about you, like if I'd be sad if something happened to you. Clint's blood ran cold. What did you tell her? I just met you, so I don't know. Was that wrong? No, that was perfect. Just be careful and remember what we talked about. He prepared Carrie for the possibility that things might get dangerous, told her to stay with Francis, keep her phone charged, and call Bruce's emergency number if anything felt wrong. 2 days before the trip, Bruce called with an urgent update. Kathleen just met with a woman named Beatrice Camp. She's a life insurance claims specialist, got fired for approving fraudulent claims. Now she freelances, helping people file claims that should be denied. So Kathleen's already preparing to file the insurance claim before I'm even dead. Exactly. Beatrice will fast-track the claim, make sure it pays out before any investigation gets too deep. By the time anyone questions the circumstances, Kathleen and Randall will have split the money and disappeared. Do you have this documented? Video and audio. Kathleen offered Beatrice 20% of the payout to guarantee the claim goes through within 2 weeks of your death. Perfect. Add it to the evidence file. The night before the trip, Clint couldn't sleep. He lay in bed next to Kathleen, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Somewhere in the past 12 years, the woman he'd married had become a stranger. Or maybe she'd always been a stranger, and he'd just been too blind to see it. At 3 a.m., he got up and went to his study. He wrote a letter to Carrie, sealed it, and gave it to Max with instructions to deliver it if something went wrong. Then he wrote letters to his employees, his business partner, his parents. "You're not going to die," Max said, reviewing the plan one last time. "You've got 5 different backup systems and a dozen people watching your back. I know, but just in case, you could still walk away. Go to the police now. Show them everything we have." Clint shook his head. "If I do that, Kathleen and Randall get good lawyers. Claim they were joking or misunderstood. They might beat the charges. And even if they don't, Carrie would never know the full truth. She'd always wonder if her dad overreacted. If maybe Kathleen really was just trying to help. So this is about Carrie. This is about making sure my daughter knows her father fought for her. But he didn't roll over when people tried to use her as a pawn." Clint met his friend's eyes. "This is about making sure she knows she's worth fighting for." Max gripped his shoulder. "Then let's make sure you survive to tell her that yourself." Friday morning, Clint loaded their bags into Kathleen's Mercedes. She was cheerful, humming as she double-checked their reservations. They drove north through traffic, talking about nothing, while Clint's backup team followed at a distance. At the hotel in Anacortes, they had dinner at a waterfront restaurant. Kathleen ordered wine, her hand on his thigh under the table. "Tomorrow's going to be wonderful," she said. "I'm looking forward to it," Clint replied, meaning every word. Because tomorrow, one way or another, this would end. Chapter 7, The Trap Springs. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Perfect weather for a murder. Clint woke before Kathleen, checked his phone, and found messages from his team. Bruce and his crew were in position around the marina. Carlton was checked into a resort on San Juan Island with lawyers and Coast Guard contacts on standby. Maxa confirmed all tracking devices were active, the wire concealed in Clint's belt, the GPS beacon in his watch, the backup tracker sewn into his jacket. Kathleen stretched beside him, smiled, and kissed him softly. "Ready for an adventure?" "Always." They took the ferry to San Juan Island. Kathleen pointing out landmarks and talking about the resort spa she wanted to visit next month. Playing the role of excited wife on a romantic getaway. Clint played along, taking photos of her against the water, smiling for her selfies, being the attentive husband. At the marina, Guillermo Shoemaker waited by a sleek yacht. He was a large man, mid-40s, with the weathered look of someone who spent his life around water. He greeted them with a too-wide smile. "Clint, finally meet you. Randall told me so much." Clint shook his hand, noting the calluses and the faint smell of marijuana. "Thanks for letting us use your boat." "No problem. Kathleen said you wanted to see some of the remote islands. How about the perfect route planned?" They boarded the yacht. Gummo cast off while Kathleen went below to check out the cabin. Clint stood at the rail watching the marina recede and pressed the activation button on his wire. From this point on, everything would be recorded. They motored out of the harbor, passing smaller islands and rocky outcroppings. The water was deep blue-green, beautiful and cold. Gurmo kept up a steady commentary about the area while Kathleen brought out sandwiches and drinks. "Here," she said, handing Clint a beer. "Your favorite." Clint pretended to drink, but barely touched it. He'd anticipated they might try to drug him first. An hour into the trip, Gurmo steered them toward a remote stretch of water between 2 uninhabited islands. The nearest other boats were dots on the horizon. "This is perfect," Kathleen said. She was standing close to the rail, her body language tense despite her smile. Clint glanced at his watch. The tracking signal was strong. His team would know exactly where they were. "So Clint," Gurmo said, cutting the engine. The sudden silence was deafening except for the lap of waves against the hull. "Kathleen tells me, you're a successful guy. Architecture, right?" "That's right. Must be nice having that kind of money." "I work hard for it." Sure. GMO leaned against the console. "But you know what they say, easy come, easy go." Kathleen moved behind Clint. He felt her presence at his back. "Too close." "Actually," Clint said, turning to face them both. "I think the expression is easy come, easy go. But in this case, nothing about my success was easy. I built my firm from nothing. 15 years of 18-hour days, sacrifices, calculated risks. That's going to make this so much sweeter," Randall Austin said, emerging from below deck. Clint let his surprise show. Not hard since he'd expected Randall to already be on the islands, not hiding on the boat. "What the hell?" "Sorry, babe," Kathleen said, not sounding sorry at all. "Change of plans. We decided it would be better if Randall was here to help." The three of them formed a rough semicircle around Clint. Guo held a boat hook. Randall had pulled a gun from his waistband. Nothing fancy, just a snub-nosed revolver that would do the job at close range. Here's how this is going to work, Randall said. You're going to sign these documents. He pulled papers from his jacket. Transfer of assets, life insurance, beneficiary changes, trust arrangements for Carrie, all very legal, all witnessed by Gummo and Kathleen. And if I refuse, then I shoot you. We weight down your body and you disappear. Tragic boating accident. Kathleen inherits anyway, but it's cleaner if you cooperate. Your choice. Clint looked at Kathleen. 12 years. Did any of it mean anything? You were a mark. Kathleen said flatly. A good mark. Nice guy, successful, trusting, but still just a mark. I saw you at that gallery, did my research, and positioned myself perfectly. You made it so easy falling for the whirlwind romance. And Carrie, a lucky break. Randall found Francis while doing background on you. He's very thorough. We realized she was the perfect leverage. Secret love child. Hidden scandal. You'd either pay to make her go away or die feeling guilty about abandoning her. Either way, we win. You used a 15-year-old girl as bait in a murder plot. We used available resources, Randall corrected. And she'll be fine. She gets a trust fund. Kathleen becomes her guardian. Everyone's happy. Well, except you. Clint looked at the gun at the three people who conspired to kill him and felt a cold satisfaction. They confessed everything. The wire had captured it all. I have a counter-offer, Clint said. You're not in a position to negotiate. Gummo growled. Actually, I am, because you've all been under surveillance for 2 weeks. Every meeting, every conversation, every step of your plan has been documented. You're being recorded right now and the Coast Guard is 5 minutes away. The color drained from Kathleen's face. Randall's gun hand wavered. You're bluffing, he said. Am I? Clint tapped his watch. GPS tracker. Marine band radio beacon. Two-way audio feed. Say hi to Carlton McCabe, my lawyer who's listening from San Juan Island, and to Bruce Everett, the private investigator who's been following all of you. Clint, we're receiving everything. Carlton's voice came through the watch speaker. Tiny but clear. Coast Guard cutter is en route. ETA 4 minutes. That's not possible, Kathleen whispered. You got sloppy. Randall doesn't secure his phone. Gummo brags about his drug smuggling operation to anyone who will listen. And you, Kathleen, you forged my signature on legal documents. That's a federal crime. Adding conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, identity theft, and you're all looking at 20 years minimum. Randall's hand tightened on the gun. I'll shoot you right now. Go ahead. It'll just add murder to your charges. The recording proves I'm not a threat. You'll go from maybe beating the conspiracy charge to definite first-degree murder. He's right, Gummo said, backing away. This is I'm not going down for murder. Shut up. Randall's desperation was palpable. He swung the gun toward Gummo. We stick to the plan. We dump his body, clean the boat. No evidence. The Coast Guard is 3 minutes out, Carlton's voice said. I'd recommend everyone stay calm. Kathleen moved toward Randall. Baby, maybe we should, I said. Shut up. Randall turned the gun on her, his hand shaking. This was the moment of maximum danger. Clint assessed angles, distances. Randall was 6 feet away. Gun pointed at Kathleen now. Gummo was backing toward the stern. The boat rocked in waves. Randall, Clint said carefully, you're in a bad position, but it's not over yet. Put down the gun. Cooperate and maybe the prosecutor deals. But if you shoot someone, anyone, you'll die in prison. I'm already going to die in prison. I owe 200 grand to people who will kill me if I don't pay. I'll pay it. Everyone froze. What? Randall said, your gambling debt. 200,000. I'll pay it right now if you put down the gun and surrender peacefully. Why would you do that? Because I don't want to watch you shoot someone, least of all my wife. Because I want Carrie to know this ended without more violence. Because Clint took a breath. Because I understand desperation. You made terrible choices, but you're not a killer. Not yet. Don't become one. In the distance, the throb of engines grew louder. The Coast Guard was close. Rand's hand trembled. Tears ran down his face. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. The gun clattered to the deck. Clint kicked it away and immediately pulled out his phone, hitting the emergency beacon. Carlton, we're secure. Randall surrendered. Tell the Coast Guard to approach carefully. 2 Coast Guard cutters arrived 3 minutes later along with a boat carrying Bruce and his team. Officers boarded the yacht with weapons drawn, but there was no resistance. Randall sat on the deck sobbing. GMO was already shouting about wanting a lawyer. Kathleen stood at the rail staring at the water, her expression blank. As they cuffed the 3 conspirators, Carlton arrived in another boat with a federal prosecutor and 2 FBI agents. "The recordings are perfect," Carlton said quietly to Clint. "Full confession of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery. They're done." Clint watched as Kathleen was led away. She didn't look at him. After 12 years of marriage, she walked out of his life without a word. "How do you feel?" Carlton asked. "Like I just survived something I shouldn't have had to." "You did good, keeping calm, getting the full confession. Most men would have panicked. Most men haven't spent 15 years solving complex structural problems. This was just another puzzle." Clint's phone buzzed. A text from Carrie. "Are you okay? Mom called me and she's freaking out." "I'm fine. I'll explain everything soon. Stay with your mom, Francis. You're safe." The Coast Guard gave Clint a ride back to San Juan Island. By evening, he was in a hotel room with Max, Carlton, and Bruce, reviewing everything that had happened. Kathleen, Randall, and Gurmo are all in federal custody. Carlton reported they're being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, forgery, and about 6 other felonies. The prosecutor is confident of conviction. The recordings and evidence are irrefutable. "What about Carrie?" Clint asked. "Francis has custody as per your documents. The trust is established and I prepared a complete legal separation between Carrie and Kathleen. No way Kathleen can claim guardianship or access Carr's funds. And Francis is okay. Shaken but relieved. She wants to talk to you." Clint called Francis. She answered on the first ring. "Oh my God, Clint, I saw the news. They're saying Kathleen tried to kill you. It's more complicated than that. But yes, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't, Francis, stop. None of this is your fault. You and Carrie are victims in this, too. Kathleen used you both." Carrie's devastated. She thought Kathleen was nice, trying to help her. Now she's blaming herself. "Can I talk to her, please?" There was rustling, then Carr's voice. "Dad." The word hit him like a physical force. "Dad. Hey, kiddo. You doing okay? Everyone's saying that lady wanted to kill you because of me. That I'm the reason all this happened. Carrie, listen to me. You're not the reason. Kathleen was planning to kill me long before you came into the picture. She just tried to use you as part of her plan. You didn't do anything wrong. But if I hadn't existed, then I wouldn't have a daughter. And I'm really glad I do. Even though we just met, even though everything's been crazy, I'm glad you exist, Carrie. Do you understand?" He heard her crying. "I'm sorry I got expelled. I'm not. If you hadn't, I might never have found out about you, and that would have been the real tragedy." They talked for another 20 minutes. Clint promised to visit soon to start building the relationship they'd both missed. When they hung up, he felt exhausted and strangely at peace. "Now what?" Max asked. "Now," Clint said, "I make sure they all pay for what they tried to do." Chapter 8, Justice and Retribution. The criminal trial took 6 months. Kathleen, Randall, and Gurmo had separate lawyers, expensive ones, paid for by public defenders after their assets were seized as proceeds of criminal conspiracy. Clint attended every day, sitting in the gallery with Max and Carlton. Bruce testified about his surveillance. Forensic accountants testified about the fraudulent financial transactions. Lester Clayton, the disbarred lawyer, took a plea deal and testified about forging Clint's signatures. The prosecution presented the recordings from the boat. The jury listened in silence as Kathleen coldly explained how she positioned herself to marry Clint, how they planned to use Carrie as leverage, how they'd mapped out the murder. "You were just a mark," Kathleen's voice said in the recording. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman named Christina Grant, addressed each defendant in turn. "Miss McMahon, you entered into a marriage with the sole intent of defrauding and ultimately murdering your spouse. You forged documents, manipulated a child, and showed absolutely no remorse. I sentence you to 30 years in federal prison." Kathleen's face remained blank. She didn't look at Clint. "Mr. Austin, you organized this conspiracy, recruited accomplices, and were prepared to commit murder for financial gain. I sentenced you to 25 years in federal prison." Randall wept openly. "Mr. Shoemaker, you provided material support to this conspiracy and were prepared to help dispose of a body. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison." Gurmo slumped in his chair. The judge looked at Clint. "Mr. McMahon, I want to commend you for your remarkable restraint and intelligence in handling the situation. Many men would have responded with violence. You responded with strategy and patience. Your daughter is lucky to have you. After the sentencing, reporters mobbed Clint outside the courthouse. He gave a brief statement. Justice has been served. I'm grateful to everyone who helped bring these criminals to account. Now, I'm going to focus on being a father to my daughter. But Clint's revenge didn't end with criminal convictions. He told Randall he'd pay off his gambling debts if Randall surrendered. He meant it, but not in the way Randall had hoped. Clint called in markers with business associates who knew people in Randall's world. The word went out. Randall Austin had cooperated with federal investigators, provided testimony that implicated others in his pharmaceutical smuggling operation. He was a snitch. In prison, snitches don't fare well. Randall would spend his sentence looking over his shoulder, isolated, vulnerable. It wasn't physical violence, but it was its own form of justice. For Kathleen, Clint ensured that every professional connection she'd made through their marriage was informed of her crimes. Her reputation in Seattle's business community was destroyed. Letters went to former clients, colleagues, friends. But the real punishment was simpler. Kathleen would spend 30 years in prison watching Clint live the life she tried to steal. He made sure the prison libraries subscribed to architecture magazines that featured his work. Made sure news of his successes and his relationship with Carrie reached her. Living well, Clint decided was indeed the best revenge. For Lester Clayton, the disbarred lawyer, Clint hired investigators to dig into every document Lester had ever forged. They found dozens of cases, divorces, custody battles, estate claims, all tainted by Lester's fraudulent work. Clint anonymously provided this information to the relevant courts. Lester's plea deal evaporated when prosecutors realized the scope of his crimes. He went from 3 years to 15. As for Beatrice Camp, the corrupt insurance specialist, she was charged as an accessory to fraud. She lost her remaining professional licenses and served 5 years. Gurmo's drug smuggling operation was dismantled. His partners facing prosecution blamed him for the investigation. His yacht was seized and auctioned. The proceeds went to victims of opioid addiction. 8 months after the trial, Clint sat in Carlton's office reviewing the last of the legal details. The divorce is final, Carlton said. Kathleen gets nothing. The house, the business, all assets remain yours. Carr's trust is fully funded. $2 million for education and living expenses with Francis as trustee and a life insurance canceled. You're no longer insured by policies Kathleen could access. Clint nodded. What about Francis? Is she set? The $50,000 you gave her, plus you're paying for Carrie's therapy and any future educational expenses. Francis says she doesn't need more, but I'd recommend establishing a college fund in your name. Done. Make it $500,000. Carlton smiled. You're a good man, Clint. I'm a man who had a daughter stolen from him by his circumstances and almost had her used as a weapon. I'm making up for lost time. That evening, Clint drove to Francis's house. Carrie met him at the door. She'd grown too in the past months and looked more confident, less haunted. Hey, Dad. Hey, kiddo. Ready for our architecture tour? They'd established a routine. Twice a week, Clint took Carrie to see his projects or other buildings he admired. They discussed design principles, structural integrity, aesthetic choices. Carrie absorbed it all like a sponge. I've been working on something, Carrie said as they drove toward downtown. She pulled out a sketchbook. It's a design for a community center for kids who don't have good home situations. I thought maybe someday. Clint pulled over to look at the sketches. They were rough, but showed real talent. The building design incorporated natural light, open spaces that could be used flexibly and small private rooms for counseling. This is good. Really good. You think so? I think you have a future in this field if you want it. But Carrie, and I mean this, you can do anything. Architecture, medicine, art, business. You get to choose your own path. I want to do what you do. Build things that help people. Clint felt his throat tighten. Then I'll teach you everything I know. They spent the evening sketching together at a cafe. Carrie asking questions, Clint explaining concepts. For the first time since that phone call from the principal, Clint felt something like peace. He'd lost 12 years of his marriage to a lie. But he gained a daughter and a future. Fair trade, he thought. Chapter 9. New Foundations. 1 year after the trial, Clint stood at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Francis Carlson Community Center, a facility designed to provide resources for single parents and their children. Carrie stood beside him, her design sketchbook clutched in her hands. You sure about this? Carrie asked, naming it after my mom. Your mom raised you alone for 15 years with no help and no support. She deserves to be honored. Clint smiled. Plus, she had to put up with me showing up unexpectedly and turning her life upside down. Francis approached, looking overwhelmed. Clint, you didn't have to do this. I wanted to. This facility will help hundreds of families like yours. It seems right that your name is on it. The ceremony was small, just family, close friends, and a few reporters. Max gave a speech about community and second chances. Carlton talked about the importance of protecting vulnerable families. Carrie read a statement she'd written about resilience and hope. Clint watched his daughter speak with confidence and poise and thought about the strange journey that had led them here. A phone call from principal. A conspiracy to commit murder. A daughter he'd never known existed. Adversity he'd learned as an architect either weakened structures or made them stronger. The key was understanding where to add support, where to remove weight, and how to build foundations that could weather any storm. After the ceremony, Carrie pulled him aside. I got accepted to summer architecture camp at Yale. That's fantastic. And I've been thinking when I graduate high school, maybe I could work at your firm as an intern. Clint pulled her into a hug. You got a job waiting whenever you want it. McMahon Design Group could use another McMahon. McMahon Carlson. Carrie corrected. I'm keeping both names. Mom earned her place, but you're my dad. I want both. McMahon Carlson. It is. That evening, Clint hosted a dinner at his house. His house now free of Kathleen's presence. He'd redecorated, softened the modern edges with warmer colors and comfortable furniture. Made it feel like a home instead of showpiece. Francis, Carrie, Max, Bruce, and Carlton gathered around the dining table. They toasted successes, shared stories, and laughed. So, what's next for you? Max asked Clint, any new projects? A few. There's a hospital wing in Portland, a museum in San Francisco, and Carrie and I are collaborating on a design for a youth shelter in Seattle. Collaborating? Frances raised her eyebrows. Dad's teaching me professional architecture, Carrie explained. And I'm teaching him how teenagers actually want spaces designed. It's a fair trade, Clint agreed. After dinner, Carrie found Clint on the deck overlooking the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange. Can I ask you something? Carrie said, anything? Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Kathleen's plan had worked if you died? Clint considered the question sometimes. But then I remember that I didn't die. I fought back. I won. I got to meet you. So whatever hypothetical past might have been, this reality is better. Even though your marriage was a lie, even though you were almost murdered, Carrie, I was married to a woman who never loved me, who saw me as a mark from day one. That sucks. But because of her scheme, I found out I had a daughter. A smart, talented, amazing daughter who makes me prouder every day. So yeah, even though it was terrible, something good came from it. Carrie leaned against the railing. She wrote me a letter from prison. Clint's protective instincts flared. What did it say? That she was sorry. That she never meant to hurt me. That she hoped I'd visit her someday. Carrie looked at him. I'm not going to. She used me, lied to Mom, tried to kill you. I don't forgive her. You don't have to forgive her. But Carrie, holding on to anger will hurt you more than it hurts her. When you're ready, maybe not now, maybe not for years. You might want to let go of that anger. Not for her sake, but for yours. Is that what you did? Let go of being angry. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others. Clint put his arm around her shoulders. But I've got a pretty good motivation to focus on the future instead of the past. Me, you and Francis, and Max and Carlton and Bruce and everyone who helped me survive and all the buildings we're going to design together. Carrie smiled. McMahon Carlson architecture has a nice ring to it. They stood together watching the sunset. Father and daughter building something new from the wreckage of betrayal and lies. 6 months later, Clint received a letter from Kathleen. He almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. Clint, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I understand now how monstrous it was. I was drowning in debt, desperate, and I made terrible choices. I told myself you wouldn't really get hurt, that it would all work out, that I was just being practical. I was wrong. I stole 12 years of your life. I tried to use Carrie, an innocent girl, as a pawn. I almost made you both believe terrible lies about each other. I deserve every year of this sentence. If there's any justice in the world, you've built a relationship with Carrie. She's probably an amazing person. I'll never know her, but I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you. I'm truly sorry, Kathleen. Clint read the letter twice, then filed it away. Maybe one day he'd show it to Carrie. Let her decide if it changed anything. Maybe not. For now, he had more important things to focus on, like teaching Carrie to calculate load-bearing walls, like designing buildings that would stand for generations, like building a relationship with his daughter one day at a time on foundations of trust and truth. Clint McMahon had been betrayed by the person he'd trusted most. He'd nearly been murdered. He discovered a daughter he'd never known existed, and he'd won. Not through violence or cruelty, but through intelligence, patience, and an understanding that the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was building something better from the ashes. He was an architect after all. Building things was what he did best. Even when the foundation was broken, even when the structure seemed unsalvageable, there was always a way to create something beautiful and strong. You just had to know where to place the support beams. And Clint McMahon always knew where to place the support beams.
And that concludes this story. That was a pretty wild one if you ask me. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Now, let's get right into the next story. It's titled,
I wanted to surprise my wife at work. At the entrance, a security guard said, "No entry for unauthorized persons." When I said I was the CEO's husband, he smiled. "Sir, I see the husband every day. There he is coming out right now." I decided to play along. "Look, I'm going to level with you right off the bat. I'm an idiot. Not the lovable sitcom kind either. The full-blown premium grade certified organic variety of stupid that makes you wonder how I've survived this long without accidentally microwaving my phone." So there I was, Noah Carter, standing in the lobby of Brightline Media with a box of hazelnut Clairs that cost more than my first car payment, thinking I'm about to win Husband of the Year. 5 years married and I figured I'd do the whole surprise at work thing cause apparently I've learned nothing from literally every romantic comedy ever made. Surprises, they're only cute when you're the one planning them. When you're on the receiving end, they're basically emotional landmines wrapped in pretty paper. My wife Emma runs this place. CEO, corner office, the whole 9 yards. We're talking glass walls, chrome everything, and people power walking through the halls like they're training for the Caffeine Olympics. I just wanted to pop in, drop off some fancy French pastries, maybe steal a kiss while she pretended to be annoyed that I interrupted her very important business meeting. Simple, sweet, foolproof. Except I forgot the golden rule. Nothing is ever simple, and I'm definitely no fool's proof. I'm walking through those massive revolving doors, already feeling like $1,000,000 in my nice jeans. And the button-down shirt Emma says makes me look presentable when this security guard materializes out of nowhere. And I mean, this guy looked like he bench-pressed small cars for fun. Uniform so crisp it could cut bread, chest puffed out like he's personally responsible for defending democracy. "Can't let you through, sir," he says, holding up a hand the size of a dinner plate. "Authorized personnel only." I flash in my most charming smile, the one that got Emma to agree to a second date after I spilled wine on her white dress. "Hey man, no worries. I'm actually the CEO's husband. Just dropping off, sir." He cuts me off with the kind of patience you'd use on a toddler, claiming they're actually a dinosaur. "I see the CEO's husband every single day, and that's definitely not you." Record scratch freeze frame. "Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this situation." I blink at him once, twice. My brain's doing this thing where it knows words are happening, but they're not quite computing. Like when you're half asleep and your alarm goes off and for a solid 30 seconds, you can't remember if you're late for work or if work is just a weird dream. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed to croak out. "The husband," Godzilla repeats, and I swear there's a hint of smugness in his voice now. I see him every morning. Super nice guy. Always carries the CEO's briefcase. In fact, he glances at his watch like he's timing a bus route. He should be coming through right about now. And then the universe decides that I haven't suffered enough. The glass doors whoosh open with that fancy automatic sound. And out walks Emma. My Emma, my wife of 5 years, 3 months, and 12 days. She's wearing that Navy Powers suit I helped her pick out last month. Her hair pulled back in that way. That means she's had back-to-back meetings since dawn. She looks absolutely radiant, glowing like she just closed a multi-million-dollar deal or discovered the meaning of life. But here's the kicker. She's not alone. Walking beside her, and I mean right beside her, close enough that their shoulders are practically touching, is a man. Not just any man either. This dude looks like he walks straight out of a cologne commercial. Tall, probably 6'2", suit so sharp it could file taxes. Hair slicked back like he's got a sponsorship deal with whatever product makes hair look like liquid silk. And he's carrying her bag, her designer leather bag that she only uses for important clients. My jaw doesn't just drop, it crashes through the floor, the basement, probably all the way down to some confused mole's living room. They're laughing about something. She touches his arm. Just a casual touch, the kind that could mean nothing or everything depending on your current level of paranoia, which for the record just shot from 0 to DEFCON 1 in about 2.5 seconds. See, Godzilla says beside me, sounding positively delighted. That's him. The husband. Mr. Reed comes in every day at 8:45 sharp. Mr. Reed. The husband. Those words are bouncing around my skull like a pinball on Red Bull. Emma and Mr. Tall Dark and stealing my life. Walk right past us. She doesn't even glance my direction. Too busy smiling at something he's saying. They head toward the executive elevators, the ones that require a special key card that I definitely don't have. I'm still standing there like a malfunctioning robot clutching a box of increasingly warm eclairs watching my wife disappear into an elevator with some GQ model who apparently everyone thinks is her husband. Sir, you okay? The guard actually sounds concerned now. You look like you've seen a ghost. Yeah, I hear myself say from somewhere far away. A ghost? That's exactly what I've seen. More like the ghost of my marriage, my trust, and my previously held belief that I knew what the hell was going on in my own life. But sure, let's go with ghost. Sounds less pathetic. The guard's radio crackles, and he turns away for a second. This is my moment. I could push past him, catch that elevator, confront Emma right there in the lobby in front of God, security cameras, and probably a dozen employees who'd have the whole thing on TikTok before I finish my first sentence. But I don't. You know why? Because despite current evidence suggesting I have the IQ of a house plant, I'm not that guy. I'm not the dude who makes a scene without facts. I'm not about to blow up my wife's professional reputation because a security guard has apparently been living in an alternate reality where she's married to Mr. Perfect instead of Mr. Just Fine. Thank you very much. Actually, I say, my voice surprisingly steady. Could you point me to HR? I think I need to file a complaint. About what, sir? About my entire life, buddy. But let's start with visitor policies. He looks confused, which makes two of us. I back away slowly, still clutching those damn eclairs, like they're the last solid thing in my rapidly liquefying world. The lobby feels too bright, too shiny, too full of people who apparently know more about my marriage than I do. I make it outside before my hands start shaking. 5 years. 5 years of marriage and some random security guard is telling me my wife has a different husband. A husband who shows up every day. A husband who carries her briefcase and makes her laugh. And no, stop. I forced myself to breathe, to think, to not completely lose my mind on a public sidewalk while holding pastries. There's an explanation. There has to be. Maybe the guards knew. Maybe he's confused. Maybe Mr. Reed is her brother. Except I've met her brother and he's definitely not 6 feet of designer masculinity. Maybe this is all some elaborate prank for our anniversary. Yeah, a prank. That makes sense. Emma's always said I'm too gullible, too trusting. This is probably her way of teaching me a lesson before surprising me with something amazing. I almost believe it, too. At least until I look back through those glass doors and see Emma and Mr. Reed getting into the same black BMW in the executive parking lot. The claws hit the trash can with a sad little thud. Happy anniversary to me. Okay, so here's where most guys would completely lose their minds. I'm talking full meltdown, screaming, crying, maybe throwing something expensive, definitely calling a lawyer who advertises on bus benches. That's the normal human response to watching your wife of 5 years drive away with budget Ryan Gosling while a security guard casually informs you that you've been replaced. But me, I'm built different. And by different, I mean I've watched way too many spy movies and have an unhealthy relationship with denial. So instead of having a completely reasonable emotional breakdown, I channel my inner Jason Bourne, minus the muscles, combat training, and general competence. I'm basically Jason Bourne. If Jason Bourne worked in IT support and his most dangerous skill was fixing printer jams, I walk back into that lobby like I own the place. Confident stride head-up box of eclairs retrieved from the trash because I have paid $17 for those things and I'll be damned if this crisis goes to waste back so soon. Godzilla asks, eyebrows raised. Yeah, you know what, I changed my mind. I lean against his desk all casual like as if my entire world isn't currently doing the Macarena on my chest. I'd actually love to meet this husband. Everyone keeps talking about the CEO's office you said. He looks at me like I've just asked him to explain quantum physics using only interpretive dance. Sir, I can't just let random people random. I let out a laugh that sounds only slightly unhinged. Buddy, I'm the most unrandom person here. In fact, I'm so specific, so particular that I'd really love to have a chat with Mr. Reed, clear some things up, maybe compare notes on, I don't know, favorite coffee orders, inside jokes, anniversaries. The guard's hand moves toward his radio. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Oh, I'm leaving. I push off from the desk, giving him my best smile. The one that says I'm totally fine and definitely not planning to spend the next week spiraling into an investigative obsession that would make true crime podcasters proud. But just out of curiosity, what kind of car does Mr. Reed drive? Black BMW 7 Series, he says automatically, then catches himself. Wait, why? No reason. Just making conversation. You have a great day, my man. Protect that lobby. Fight the good fight. Keep letting my wife's secret husband waltz in here every morning while I'm at home making her breakfast like some kind of domesticated chump. I'm halfway to the revolving doors before he calls out, "Sir, are you okay?"
I shout back, probably a little too loud.
A woman in a pencil skirt gives me a wide berth. Living the dream. Feeling fantastic. Definitely not planning anything crazy. The automatic doors can't spit me out fast enough. Here's the thing about rage mixed with confusion and topped with a generous helping of what the actual well hell. It makes you do stupid things, things you'd never normally do. Things that in hindsight you'll look back on and think, wow, that was definitely the behavior of a stable, rational adult. Which is how I end up at the coffee shop directly across from Brightline Media, sitting at a window seat like I'm on a stakeout in a bad detective novel. The cafe is called Grounded. One of those aggressively hip places where the menu is on a chalkboard. The barista has a man bun. And ordering a small coffee makes you sound like you're from the wrong century. Everything's got some cutesy name like the Enlightened Bean or Conscious Cup. I'll have the most bitter thing you've got. I tell man bun, slapping a 20 on the counter. And I mean emotionally devastating. I want this coffee to taste like my life feels right now. He blinks at me. So, a dark roast. Perfect. Make it a large. Actually, make it whatever size is called. I just discovered my wife might be living a double life. That's not on the menu, but I can do a triple shot. Sold. I take my liquid depression to the window seat with the best view of Brightline's entrance. This is fine. This is totally normal behavior. I'm just a guy sitting in a coffee shop, definitely not stalking his own wife. It's called getting answers. Very mature, very reasonable. The coffee tastes like burnt regret with hints of poor life choices. It's perfect. I watch the building's entrance like it's the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. People stream in and out. Business casual zombies clutching their own overpriced caffeine talking on phones looking important. I'm looking for one specific beam. One specific lying briefcase carrying husband impersonating there. The black BMW pulls up to the front entrance at exactly 5:47 p.m. I know because I've been checking my phone every 30 seconds like it's going to magically provide explanations. Mr. Reed gets out first because of course he does. Probably so he can open Emma's door like some kind of chivalrous knight who doesn't know she's already married into a perfectly adequate door opener. Thank you very much. He's changed into a different suit. Charcoal gray this time. Still looks like he irons his face every morning. Then Emma emerges and my chest does this weird thing where it simultaneously clenches and drops. She's laughing again. Not just a polite work laugh either, the real one. The one where her nose scrunches up a little. The one I used to think was just for me. They stand by the car for a moment talking. He says something. She touches his arm again. There's that arm touch, the one that's apparently a regular feature of their relationship. Then she does something that makes my triple shot cardiac arrest special almost come back up. She adjusts his tie, just reaches up, casual as anything, and straightens his tie like it's the most natural thing in the world. Like she's done it 1,000 times before. My hand, the one holding my phone, moves on autopilot. I'm filming. I don't even remember deciding to film, but there I am, phone pressed against the window, recording my wife being domestic with another man. Dude, are you okay? Man bun is suddenly beside me with a plate. You ordered the anxiety muffin? I absolutely did not order that. Yeah, but you look like you needed it on the house. I glance at the muffin. It's got some kind of seeds on it. Probably chia or quinoa or whatever's trendy in the superfood community this week. Does it come with answers to life's greatest mysteries? Just fiber, man. But that's pretty important, too. Across the street, Emma and Mr. Reed get into the BMW together. He's driving. She's in the passenger seat. They pull away from the curb and I'm on my feet before my brain catches up to my legs. Thanks for the muffin, I yell, already heading for the door. You didn't eat it. Emotional support baked goods. I'll cherish the memory. I burst onto the sidewalk and immediately open my ride-share app. My fingers are shaking. Partly from the coffee, mostly from the adrenaline, entirely from the reality that I'm about to follow my own wife like I'm in a Lifetime movie. A Toyota Camry pulls up in 45 seconds. The driver's name is Dimitri, and he's got one of those dashboards covered in religious icons and air fresheners. Follow that BMW, I say, pointing. Dmitri turns around slowly. You are serious? Dead serious. This is because of woman. How did you is always because of woman. He sighed deeply like he's seen this movie 1,000 times. Okay, we follow, but I charge extra for drama. Fair enough. We pull into traffic 3 cars behind the BM. I'm sitting in the back seat of Dimitri's Camry, clutching my phone like it's the One Ring, watching my wife's car navigate through downtown traffic. This is my life now. This is what 5 years of marriage has led to. Me a probably stale anxiety muffin in my pocket. Paying surge pricing to tail my own wife. She is beautiful. Yes. Dimitri asks, glancing in the rearview mirror. The woman you follow? The most beautiful. And the man looks like he has a skincare routine that costs more than my car. Ah. Dimitri nods sagely. Is always the way. The BMW turns onto Riverside Drive heading toward the nice part of town. The part where restaurants have names like single words, flux or essence or pretentious. And the waiters describe your food like they're narrating a nature documentary. Sure enough, they pull up to the Vine Terrace. Of course. It's only the most romantic restaurant in the city. The place where proposals happen and anniversaries are celebrated and apparently where wives take their second husbands for a nice Wednesday evening. You want I should wait? Dimitri asks as they valley the BMW. Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm watching them walk toward the entrance. Mr. Reed's hand is on the small of Emma's back. Actually, can you just park somewhere with a good view of restaurant of my marriage ending? Is very sad, Dimitri says, but he parks across the street with a perfect sightline to the restaurant's front windows. I can see them being seated. Corner table candle light because apparently the universe has jokes. A waiter brings menus. They're both smiling, talking, looking like every other normal couple out for a nice dinner. Except one half of that couple is my wife. My phone's still recording. I don't know what I'm going to do with this footage. Exhibit A in divorce court. A really depressing TikTok. Blackmail material for when I need someone to take out the trash. They order wine. Red. Looks like Emma only drinks red wine when she's celebrating something. When we had our first date, she ordered red wine because she just landed her first major client. On our wedding day, red wine. When she made CEO, you guessed it, red wine. What exactly is she celebrating now? The waiter brings appetizers. They share something. Looks like bruschetta or maybe my will to live. Hard to tell from this distance. Mr. Reed says something that makes Emma laugh so hard she covers her mouth. That's her tell. When she's really genuinely amused, she covers her mouth like she's embarrassed by how much joy she's experiencing. I used to be the one who made her laugh like that. Then comes the main course. Some kind of pasta situation. They're eating, talking, and then oh no. Oh no, no, no. Emma picks up her fork, twirls some pasta, and feeds it to him. She actually leans across the table and feeds him a bite of her dinner. His mouth closes around her fork, and he does this exaggerated M face that she clearly finds hilarious. I'm calling 911. This is a crime. This is emotional terrorism. This is very bad, Dimitri asks quietly. She fed him pasta, Dimitri. Ah. He says it like I've just confirmed a terminal diagnosis is very bad. My phone's memory is almost full. I've got about 15 minutes of footage of my wife having the time of her life with Mr. Perfect, and I'm sitting in a stranger's Camry eating what I can only assume is a deeply disappointed anxiety muffin, trying to figure out where exactly my life went off the rails. They finish dinner, order dessert, tiramisu, because Emma has good taste, even when she's apparently cheating on me. The bill comes, Mr. Reed pays. Of course, he pays. Probably doesn't even look at the total. They stand to leave and I duck down in my seat like I'm in a cartoon. What you do now? Dimitri asks. Honestly, I have no idea. Maybe go home, pretend this didn't happen. Wake up tomorrow and discover this was all a really specific, really cruel nightmare. Or, Dimitri suggests you could talk to wife. Yeah, that's definitely an option for people who are emotionally mature and ready to have difficult conversations. And you are not this person, Dimitri, my friend. I'm sitting in your car eating a muffin I didn't order after filming my wife through a restaurant window like a deranged private investigator. What do you think? He considers this. I think you need better plan. You and me both, buddy. You and me both. The BMW pulls away from valet. I slump lower in my seat, wondering if this is rock bottom or if there's still some deeper circle of hell waiting for me. Dimitri starts the engine. I take you home now. Yeah, I say quietly, watching the tail lights disappear into traffic. Take me home, wherever that is anymore. So, Here's a fun fact about denial. It's actually a really comfortable place to live. It's got terrible Wi-Fi and the neighbors are all your worst fears. But the rent's cheap and you can pretend literally anything you want. Like for instance, that your wife isn't having cozy dinners with a man who looks like he was assembled in a laboratory specifically designed to make regular guys feel inadequate. I spent the entire ride home staring at my phone, watching the footage I'd recorded like it was going to suddenly reveal that this was all a massive misunderstanding. Maybe there'd be a boom mic in the corner of the frame. Proof that this was actually a commercial shoot for luxury cars or betrayal-flavored pasta. Spoiler alert, there was no boom mic. Here is good. Dimitri asked, pulling up to my apartment building, the one Emma and I moved into 3 years ago because it was charming and affordable, which is real estate code for small and the elevator breaks a lot. Yeah, this is perfect. I handed him cash, including a generous tip because if anyone deserved hazard pay for emotional support, it was this man. Thanks for, being my accomplice in whatever psychological breakdown this was. Is not breakdown, Dimitri said wisely. Is wake up. Sometimes we sleep through our lives. Sometimes we need alarm clock. That's actually pretty profound. I listened to a lot of podcasts while I drive. I trudged up 4 flights of stairs. Elevator was broken naturally and let myself into our apartment. Emma wouldn't be home for another few hours, which gave me time to do what any rational adult would do in this situation, completely spiral. I dropped onto the couch and opened my laptop. Time for some good old-fashioned internet stalking. If I was going to have a mental breakdown, I was going to have an informed one. LinkedIn was my first stop. Professional, classy, definitely not creepy. Julian Reed, Chief Operating Officer at Brightline Media. Harvard MBA, previously at Goldman Sachs, board member at 3 different companies I couldn't pronounce. The guy's resume read like a greatest hits album of success. His profile picture showed him at some charity gala, black tie, looking like money had sex with confidence, and produced a really annoying baby. I scrolled through his posts. Lots of corporate buzzword salad, synergy, paradigm shifts, leveraging core competencies. One post from 2 weeks ago about Brightline's Q3 earnings with a photo of him and Emma shaking hands with some investors, her hand on his shoulder, his smile genuine and warm. The comments were full of congratulations and people calling them a dynamic duo. And one person who wrote, "You two make such a great team. #power couple." I slammed the laptop shut so hard I'm surprised that it didn't crack. Power couple. Power couple. I needed coffee or whiskey or a time machine. I went with coffee because it was 8 p.m. and I still had some pretense of having my life together while the machine gurgled and hissed. Much like my mental state, I pulled out my phone and did what every mature adult does when facing a crisis. I went down the social media rabbit hole. Julian Reed's Instagram was private because of course it was. The man had boundaries unlike me apparently, who was currently violating every principle of trust and privacy in my marriage. But his Twitter was public, well, X or whatever we're calling it now. I refused to fully commit to the rebrand. Some hills are worth dying on. His posts were mostly business stuff. Retweets of industry news and the occasional motivational quote that probably made sense if you were the kind of person who woke up at 5 a.m. to do hot yoga and drink green smoothies. But then I found something interesting. A tweet from 3 weeks ago. Family is everything. Grateful for the ones who keep us grounded. Attached was a photo of Julian with a woman and a little kid maybe 5 or 6 years old. The woman looked like him. Same sharp features and confident smile. The caption on the photo said, "Saturday with my favorite people." I zoomed in. The woman was wearing a hospital bracelet. The kid was holding a balloon that said, "Get well soon." I switched back to LinkedIn, searching for any connection between Julian and this mystery woman. Found her in about 30 seconds. Victoria Reed, Clinical Director at Mercy General Hospital. Her profile listed Julian as a connection, and her bio mentioned she was proud sister to the world's best brother. Sister, not girlfriend, not affair partner, sister. The kid must be her son, which would make Julian an uncle. A family man who took Saturdays to visit his sister in the hospital. I sat back, coffee forgotten. This was good news, right? This meant Julian probably wasn't trying to steal my wife. He was just a guy with a sick sister who happened to work closely with Emma. Except that didn't explain the dinners, the arm touches, the tie adjustment. The way Emma laughed like she didn't have a husband at home eating anxiety muffins in a stranger's car. I went back to Instagram, created a burner account. Definitely not Noah Carter. I'm great at this spy thing. And sent Julian a follow request. I know. This is pathetic, but I was already 4 levels deep into pathetic town. Might as well check out the local attractions. While I waited to see if he'd accept, I started Googling signs your wife is cheating because apparently I hate myself. The first article listed all the classics. Suddenly dressing better. Emma always dressed great. Being secretive with her phone. She left it lying around all the time. Working late more often. She'd always worked late. And being emotionally distant. Okay, maybe a little, but we'd both been busy. None of it felt definitive. It was like reading a horoscope vague enough to apply to anyone if you squinted hard enough and were sufficiently paranoid. My phone buzzed. Julian had accepted my follow request. Jesus, that was fast. Did this guy just sit around waiting to approve random followers? Didn't he have a company to run? A wife to steal? Scrolled through his feed with the intensity of an FBI analyst hunting for terrorists. Most of it was what you'd expect. Gym selfies, of course. Photos of elaborate meals, naturally scenic shots from what looked like business trips because his life wasn't already annoyingly perfect. But then I hit the jackpot. Or maybe the opposite of a jackpot. A jack broke. Whatever. A photo from last month. Julian and Emma at some kind of corporate retreat. They're on a beach. White sand, turquoise water, the works. They're both in business casual, but Emma's wearing this sundress I'd never seen before. Yellow with little flowers. She looks absolutely radiant, hair down and wavy from the ocean breeze. They're laughing at something off camera. His arm is around her shoulders. The caption, great minds think alike. Even better minds think together. #Brightline retreat shamwork mom grateful. 147 likes, 32 comments, all variations of you guys are amazing and dream team, and one from someone named Ashley who wrote, get yourself a work spouse like this. Work spouse. I'd heard Emma use that term before, usually when talking about her assistant or the head of marketing. But this felt different. This felt like a work spouse who'd been upgraded to the premium package with extra benefits. I checked the date. The retreat was 3 weeks ago. Emma had told me about it. Some leadership thing in Florida. She'd sent me photos of the hotel, complained about the conference food, FaceTimed me one night when she couldn't sleep. She hadn't mentioned Julian, not once. Not a single Julian said the funniest thing today or Julian and I grabbed dinner after the workshops. Nothing. I scrolled further back, found more photos of them together. Always professional settings, conferences, office parties, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, but they were in almost every group shot, usually standing next to each other. In one photo from 6 months ago, at what looked like a company holiday party, Emma was adjusting Julian's pocket square while he laughed. The pocket square, the tie. She was always straightening something on him, like he was a Ken doll. She was styling for success. My coffee had gone cold. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, too full of questions I didn't want to ask because I was terrified of the answers. I needed a plan, a real one, not just follow wife around like a creep and hope for the best. I needed information, facts, evidence that either proved Emma was cheating or confirmed I was losing my mind. Option 1, confront her directly. Ask her point blank about Julian and watch her reaction. Pros, honest, mature, straightforward. Cons, I'm a coward. And also, what if the answer is worse than the uncertainty? Option 2, hire a private investigator. Pros, professionals who know what they're doing, unlike me. As expensive. Also feels like admitting our marriage is a lifetime movie. Option 3, keep investigating on my own, gather more evidence, and then confront her with facts. Pros, I get to feel like a detective might find exonerating evidence gives me time to process. Cons, every crime podcast I've ever listened to would be screaming at me not to do this. I went with option 3, obviously, because I make excellent choices. I spent the next 2 hours building what I can only describe as a conspiracy theory board, but digital. I created a private note on my phone titled Definitely Not About Emma. Again, nailing this subterfuge thing and started listing everything I knew. Facts. Julian is COO at Brightline, works directly with Emma. Security guard thinks Julian is Emma's husband. They arrive together most mornings. They have regular dinners, or at least one dinner that I witnessed. Emma touches him frequently, arm, tie, pocket square. They attended a beach retreat together. Julian has a sister in hospital and a nephew. Julian is objectively more attractive than me. Okay, this might not be a fact, but it feels like one. Questions. Does Emma have feelings for Julian? Does Julian have feelings for Emma? How long has this been going on? Does anyone else at Brightline know? Am I the only person in the world who didn't realize my wife has a work husband? Why didn't she mention him before? Why does the guard think Julian is her actual husband? Theories. 1. They're having an affair. Worst case scenario also most obvious. 1. They're very close friends and I'm jealous. Possible, but doesn't explain the secrecy. 1. And it's all work-related and I'm creating drama from nothing. Then why do I feel like something's off? 1. Simulation theory. And none of this is real. Unhelpful, but can't rule it out. I was staring at my phone trying to decide if adding a 5th theory about parallel universes was taking things too far when I heard keys in the door. Emma was home. I panicked, closed the note app so fast I almost threw my phone across the room and tried to arrange myself on the couch in a way that said, "Normal husband having a normal evening," rather than paranoid investigator who's been stalking you through the internet. The door opened and there she was, still in her Navy Powers suit, hair slightly mussed from the day, carrying her briefcase and a bag from our favorite Thai place down the street. "Hey babe." She smiled at me. That real smile. The one that made me fall in love with her in the first place. "I brought pad Thai. Extra peanuts. Just how you like it." And just like that, all my theories and investigations and carefully catalogued evidence felt stupid. This was Emma. My Emma. The woman who remembered and let how I liked my noodles. Who brought home dinner even though she'd probably been working since dawn. Who was looking at me right now with nothing but affection. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe I was manufacturing problems where there weren't any. Maybe. "How was your day?" she asked, setting the food on our kitchen counter. And I looked at her, really looked at her, trying to find any hint of guilt or secrecy or anything that suggested she was living a double life. I found nothing. Just my wife, tired from a long day, being thoughtful and sweet. "It was fine," I lied. "Totally normal. Definitely didn't follow you to a restaurant or create a burner Instagram account to stalk your coworker," she laughed, thinking I was joking. "You're such a weirdo. That's why I love you." She kissed my cheek and went to change out of her work clothes, leaving me alone with the Thai food and my thoughts and the growing certainty that I was either about to uncover the truth or completely destroy my marriage trying, possibly both. I pulled out my phone and added one more line to my notes. "Tomorrow, go back to Bright Line. Get past security, find out what the hell is actually going on." The pad Thai was delicious, by the way. Extra peanuts and everything. Tasted like impending doom, but in a really flavorful way. You know what's great about insomnia? Absolutely nothing. But you know what insomnia is great for? Overthinking every single moment of your relationship and wondering if you've been living in a romantic comedy where you're not the love interest. You're the oblivious best friend who doesn't realize the main character has moved on. I spent the entire night staring at the ceiling while Emma slept peacefully beside me, which by the way felt like its own kind of betrayal. How dare she sleep soundly while I'm over here having an existential crisis that would make Hamlet say, "Dude, relax." Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Julian's stupid perfect face, that hair, that suit, that arm around Emma's shoulders on a beach that I'd never been invited to. My brain was stuck in a loop, playing the greatest hits of my paranoia on repeat. By 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely. Emma's alarm wouldn't go off for another hour and a half, which gave me plenty of time to do something either really smart or catastrophically stupid. The line between those two has always been pretty blurry for me. I crept out of bed like a ninja. If ninjas were clumsy and accidentally kicked the laundry basket and headed to my laptop. If I was going to show up at Bright Line again today, I needed a plan better than wing it and hope for the best. LinkedIn had become my new best friend, which is either really sad or really resourceful, depending on how charitable you're feeling. I pulled up Bright Line Media's company page and started scrolling through employees. There had to be someone, anyone, who could tell me what the deal was with Emma and Julian. Someone who worked closely with them. Someone who might have noticed if there was something going on. That's when I found her, Rebecca Cho, executive assistant to the CEO. Her profile picture showed a woman in her late 20s with glasses and a smile that suggested she knew where all the bodies were buried. Every good CEO has an assistant who knows everything, and I was willing to bet Rebecca was that person. Her LinkedIn said she'd been with Bright Line for 3 years, which meant she'd been there when Emma took over as CEO, and she'd definitely been there for whatever was developing between Emma and Julian. I needed to talk to Rebecca. But how? I couldn't just walk into Bright Line and ask to speak with my wife's assistant about whether my wife was cheating on me. That's not suspicious at all, officer, unless I opened a new tab and Googled Bright Line Media public events. If the company was doing anything public, a press conference, a charity thing, an open house, maybe I could show up without seeming like a total stalker, more than I already was. Jackpot. Bright Line was hosting a career fair today at 2 p.m. Meet the team, learn about opportunities in media, free coffee, and networking. The event was open to the public, which meant I could waltz right in without needing to get past my new nemesis, Godzilla. I checked the clock. 5:17 a.m. Emma would be up soon. I needed to act normal, whatever that meant anymore. I closed the laptop and headed to the kitchen to make coffee. The real kind, not the artisanal depression brew from yesterday. The machine gurgled to life, and I tried to rehearse what a normal morning looked like. Smile. Ask about her day. Don't mention Julian. Don't mention following her. Don't mention anything that happened in the last 24 hours. And easy. I'm a great actor. I once convinced my college roommate I knew how to cook, and he didn't figure out I'd been ordering takeout and transferring it to my own plates for 3 weeks. Emma emerged from the bedroom at 6:30, already dressed in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She looked perfect. She always looked perfect. It was actually kind of annoying. "Morning," she said, kissing my cheek on her way to the coffee. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, which was the first honest thing I'd said in 24 hours. "Big day ahead." "Oh, yeah. What's going on?" "Think, Noah. Think. Just got a lot of work stuff to catch up on. Might head to that coffee shop downtown. Change of scenery, you know." She nodded, distracted by her phone. "Probably checking emails or texting Julian." "No, stop it, brain. Sounds good. I've got meetings all day. Probably won't be home until late." "Meetings with anyone interesting?" I asked, trying to sound casual and definitely not fishing for information. She looked up from her phone, eyebrow raised. "Noah, they're work meetings. None of them are interesting." "Right. Obviously, I was just making conversation like a normal person who is totally normal." "Are you okay? You're being weird." "Me? Weird? Never. I'm the most not weird person you've ever met. I'm aggressively regular." She laughed, thank God, and grabbed her briefcase. "Okay, weirdo. I'll see you tonight. Love you." "Love you, too," I said automatically, and she was gone before I could analyze whether she'd hesitated before saying it, or if I was just projecting my anxiety onto every interaction. The apartment felt too quiet after she left. I stood there in my pajamas, the ones with the cartoon tacos on them that Emma got me for my birthday, because she thought they were adorably ridiculous, and wondered when exactly my life had turned into a bad soap opera. I had 6 hours until the career fair. 6 hours to prepare, to practice looking like someone who belonged at a corporate networking event, to figure out exactly what I was going to say to Rebecca Cho if I managed to find her. I spent those 6 hours doing what any rational person would do. I went full FBI. First, I needed to look the part. The taco pajamas weren't going to cut it. I dug through my closet for my interview suit, the one I'd worn exactly twice, both times to weddings. Navy blue, saw slightly wrinkled because I'm not the kind of guy who owns an iron or knows how to use one. I threw it on the bed and moved to phase 2 research. I created a new document on my laptop titled Bright Line Career Fair Strategy and started making notes. Objective: talk to Rebecca Cho without seeming insane. Cover story: I'm interested in career opportunities at Bright Line. Not technically a lie. I'm very interested in whether my marriage has opportunities to continue existing. Questions to ask: what's it like working at Bright Line? Ease her in. What's the CEO like? Casual. Casual. Not suspicious. I heard the CEO and COO are really close. Is that true? Abort. Abort. Too obvious. Okay. So, I needed to be more subtle. I could do subtle. I'm a subtle guy. I once went in an entire dinner party without mentioning that I could solve a Rubik's Cube in under 2 minutes. That's restraint. I spent the next hour scrolling through Bright Line's website, memorizing facts about the company so I could sound semi-intelligent if anyone asked why I was interested in working there. Revenue $47 million annually. Employees 230. Primary business: digital media and content creation. Known for innovative storytelling and cutting-edge campaigns. Great. I knew nothing about any of that, but I could fake it. I've been faking confidence my entire adult life. What's one more performance? At noon, I started getting ready. Shower, shave, the suit that made me look like I was either going to court or a funeral. I slicked my hair back with some product Emma kept in the bathroom, the expensive stuff that smelled like cedar and promises. I looked in the mirror. The guy staring back at me looked almost professional, almost like someone who belonged at a career fair and not like someone who was using a career fair as a cover to investigate his wife's potential affair. "You got this, Moss," I told my reflection. "You're Noah freaking Carter. You've survived worse than this." Technically, I hadn't, but positive self-talk is important. I grabbed my laptop because people at career fairs bring laptops, right? And headed out. The elevator was working for once, which I took as a good omen. The universe was on my side, or at least not actively trying to sabotage me, which was about as much as I could hope for these days. And the ride shared to Bright Line took 20 minutes. Not Dimitri this time, some kid named Tyler, who spent the entire ride telling me about his SoundCloud. I gave him 5 stars because I'm not a monster, even if his music sounded like a robot having a breakdown. Bright Line Media looked different in the afternoon, less intimidating, more approachable. There were balloons outside, corporate blue and white, and a banner that said, "Your future starts here." My future, right? The one that either included a wife who loved me or divorce papers in a studio apartment where I'd eat cereal for dinner and question all my life choices. I walked through the front doors. Different security guard, younger, less invested in who was or wasn't married to the CEO. He barely glanced at my ID before waving me toward the elevators. "But career fairs on the 5th floor," he said. "Can't miss it." 5th floor, where I'd seen Emma and Julian looking at blueprints yesterday. This was either fate or a really cruel coincidence. The elevator ride felt like it took 3 years. I practiced my smile in the reflective walls. Too eager, too nervous, too much like a guy who's about to do something stupid. The doors opened to organized chaos. The 5th floor had been transformed into a networking paradise. Or hell, depending on your perspective. Booths everywhere, each one representing a different department. Marketing, sales, creative, operations, HR, which I was definitely avoiding because those people could smell desperation. And there near the back, a booth labeled Executive Operations. Behind it, Rebecca Cho. She looked exactly like her LinkedIn photo, except more tired. She was juggling 3 conversations at once, handing out brochures, and somehow managing to look both professional and deeply exhausted. I grabbed a coffee from the refreshment table, needed something to do with my hands, and made my way over. There were 2 people ahead of me talking to her, which gave me time to rehearse. "Hi, I'm Noah. I'm interested in opportunities at Bright Line. What's it like working here?" "Oh, the CEO. Yeah, I've heard great things. Must be exciting working so closely with her. Does she work closely with anyone else? Like say a COO who looks like he stepped out of a cologne ad?" "No. Too obvious, too desperate, too likely to get me escorted out by security." The 2 people ahead of me finally moved on. And suddenly, Rebecca was looking at me expectantly. "Hi," she smiled. "Welcome to Bright Line. Are you interested in executive operations?" Yes, definitely. Executive operations are very operational." "Great start, Noah. Really nailing this." She handed me a brochure. "We're looking for people with strong organizational skills, attention to detail, and the ability to work in a fast-paced environment. Do you have experience in this field?" Some I lied. "I'm actually really interested in the company culture here. What's it like working with the leadership team?" "Oh, they're amazing," Rebecca said, and her smile turned genuine. "Emma, the CEO, she's incredible. Really cares about the team, always pushing us to do better. And Julian, our COO, he's equally supportive. They make a great team." There it was. They make a great team. My stomach dropped somewhere around my kneecaps. "That's great," I managed. "They must work together a lot. All the time. I mean, that's the job, right?" She laughed. "They're practically inseparable. Morning strategy meetings, client dinners, weekend planning sessions. Honestly, I don't know how they do it. I'd go crazy spending that much time with my coworker. Weekend planning sessions. Weekend. Wow," I said, my voice sounding weird and distant. "That's really dedicated, right?" Emma always says Julian's the only person who really gets her vision for the company. They finish each other's sentences in meetings. It's actually kind of funny to watch. They finish each other's sentences. That's what people say about couples. About people who are in sync. About people who "Are you okay?" Rebecca asked. "You look a little pale." "Fine. Just the coffee too strong." But speaking of Julie and Noah, I turned around and my entire life flashed before my eyes. Emma was standing 10 feet away, looking at me like I just materialized out of thin air, which from her perspective I basically had. "Emma, hi. What a coincidence." I sounded like a game show host having a stroke. She walked over, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing here? Career fair?" "Just, exploring opportunities, thinking about a change, new horizons, fresh starts." I was talking too fast. Way too fast. Rebecca looked between us, confused. "Wait, do you 2 know each other?" "He's my husband," Emma said slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. Rebecca's face went through about 17 different expressions in 2 seconds. Oh, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. I was just telling him about what a great team we are, Emma finished. Her voice was ice. How Julian and I are practically inseparable. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. This is what dying feels like. Noah, can I talk to you for a second? Emma's smile didn't reach her eyes. Privately? Sure, absolutely. Privacy. Love it. She grabbed my arm, not gently, and pulled me toward an empty conference room. The door closed behind us with a click that sounded like a coffin shutting. Start talking, Emma said. And I did. Because at this point, what else was I going to do? Here's the thing about being caught in a lie. There's a split second where you can either commit to the bit and dig yourself deeper, or you can come clean and face the consequences. Most people would choose honesty. I, however, am not most people. I can explain, I said, which is universally recognized as code for I absolutely cannot explain, but I'm about to try anyway. Emma crossed her arms, leaning against the conference table. She was doing that thing where she got very, very calm before completely losing it, like the ocean pulling back before its tsunami. I'm listening. Okay. So, funny story. This better be hilarious, Noah. Right. So, yesterday I came by to surprise you for our anniversary with eclairs from Bliss Bakery, your favorite. Her expression softened slightly. You did? Yeah. But then the security guard told me he sees your husband every day and that your husband definitely wasn't me. And then you walked out with Julian and he was carrying your bag. And I was talking so fast the words were practically tripping over each other. And I maybe followed you to dinner and watched you feed him pasta through a restaurant window while sitting in a stranger's Camry eating an anxiety muffin. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight and texture and probably its own gravitational field. Then Emma did something I didn't expect. She laughed. Not a little chuckle either. A full bent-over tears in her eyes laugh that echoed off the glass walls. You, she gasped between laughs. You followed me in a Camry? His name was Dimitri. He was very philosophical about the whole thing. She wiped her eyes, still giggling. Noah Carter, are you telling me you've been stalking me because you thought I was having an affair with Julian? I prefer the term independent investigation, but sure, let's go with stalking. Oh my God, she sat down heavily in one of the conference chairs. You really thought Julian and I were Emma? The man carries your briefcase. He drives you to work. The security guard thinks he's your husband. You adjust his tie like you're preparing him for picture day. You went to a beach retreat together and didn't mention him once. You had dinner at the Vine Terrace. The Vine Terrace, which is where people go and they're either getting engaged or having affairs. And statistically, you're already married. So, Noah. She held up a hand and I shut up immediately. First of all, that security guard has been confused since day one. He started working here right after Julian got promoted to COO. Julian arrives early every morning because he lives 3 blocks away. And yes, we usually ride the elevator together because we both work on the executive floor. That's not suspicious. That's called carpooling by elevator. Okay, but second, she continued, Julian and I work together constantly because we're running a company. The COO and CEO kind of have to be on the same page. We finish each other's sentences because we've been working together for 3 years and have the same business philosophy, not because we're secretly in love. I felt my face getting hot. What about the beach retreat? A leadership conference that 12 other executives also attended, including Margaret from HR, who was 63 and brought her husband. The tie thing. Julian is objectively terrible at dressing himself. His sister usually helps him, but she's been sick. So, I've been making sure he doesn't show up to investor meetings looking like he got dressed in the dark. It's called being a good colleague. The pasta feeding? Emma paused. Okay, that one's fair. That was weird. But he just told me this hilarious story about his nephew trying to eat spaghetti for the first time, and I was trying to demonstrate the right way to twirl it, and honestly, it made sense at the time. I slumped in my chair, feeling like the world's biggest idiot. So, there's nothing going on with you and Julian? Noah. She moved to sit next to me, taking my hand. Julian is gay. Very, very gay. He's been with his boyfriend Marcus for 4 years. They have a Pomeranian named Chanel. I went to their commitment ceremony last spring. Remember when I went to that work thing in the Burkers? My brain short-circuited. Wait, what? Julian is gay. She said it slowly, like explaining calculus to a golden retriever. He's not interested in me. He's not interested in any women. He's interested in Marcus, their dog, and whether Restoration Hardware is having a sale on throw pillows. I stared at her, then at the ceiling, then back at her. I'm an idiot. Yes, a complete and total idiot. Getting warmer. I created an entire conspiracy theory in my head, stalked my own wife, created a burner Instagram account, and spent yesterday evening in a Camry with a philosophical ride-share driver. All because I jumped to conclusions based on literally nothing. Now you're getting it. She squeezed my hand. But here's what I don't understand. Why didn't you just ask me? We've been married for 5 years, Noah. You could have just said, hey, who's this Julian guy, and why does this security guard think he's your husband? I sighed, feeling the weight of my stupidity settling on my shoulders like a really judgmental parrot. Because I was scared. Because Julian is objectively successful and put together, and he carries briefcases without looking like a tryhard, and his hair does that thing where it looks professionally styled, even in a hurricane. And then there's me, Guy, who works from home in taco pajamas and once called you from the grocery store because I forgot what kind of milk we drink. Oat milk. We drink oat milk. See, I still don't know that. Emma's expression softened. Noah, I didn't marry Julian. I married you. I married the guy who brings me eclairs on our anniversary and makes terrible dad jokes before we even have kids. I married the guy who watches documentaries with me even though you hate them and who learned how to make my mom's soup recipe even though it takes 4 hours. I don't need someone who looks like a cologne commercial. I need someone who makes me laugh and knows me and loves me even when I work too much and forget to come home before midnight. I felt something in my chest unclench, something I hadn't realized was wound so tight. I'm sorry for not trusting you, for being a jealous idiot for all of it. You should be. But she was smiling. You're lucky you're cute when you're stupid. So, we're okay. We're okay. But you're buying me dinner at the Vine Terrace to make up for this. And you're going to meet Julian properly so you can stop thinking he's some kind of home wrecker when he's actually just a really dedicated COO who happens to need fashion assistance. Deal. I kissed her, feeling like the luckiest idiot alive. Now come on, she said standing up. You need to apologize to Rebecca for whatever weird conversation you two were having. Do I have to? Noah. Fine. But if she posts about this on LinkedIn, I'm deleting my account. We walked back out to the career fair hand in hand. Rebecca saw us coming and immediately looked like she wanted to dissolve into the floor. I'm so sorry, she said before I could even open my mouth. I had no idea you were married to Emma and I was just answering your questions and I didn't mean to make it sound like anything weird was going on. And Rebecca, Emma interrupted gently. It's fine. My husband was just doing some very thorough research on company culture. The most thorough, I agreed. Really went deep. Maybe too deep. Definitely too deep. You're not going to fire me, are you? Rebecca asked, looking genuinely worried. Only if you tell anyone about this, Emma said, but she was smiling. This stays between us, okay? Rebecca nodded so hard I thought her head might fall off. Absolutely. Completely confidential. I'll take it to my grave. Perfect. Emma squeezed my hand. Now, if you'll excuse us, I need to introduce my husband to my COO so he can stop stalking him on social media. You know about the burner account? I asked as we walked away. Noah, you named it, definitely not Noah Carter. You're not exactly a criminal mastermind. Dimitri thought I was doing great. Dimitri sounds like a very kind man who was enabling your worst impulses. We took the elevator to the 7th floor executive offices. My heart was pounding, but for a different reason now. I was about to meet the man I'd spent the last 24 hours convinced was destroying my marriage, only to find out he was just a well-dressed gay guy with a sick sister and a boyfriend named Marcus. Emma knocked on a door labeled Julian Reed, COO, and walked in without waiting for an answer. Julian was sitting at his desk looking at a presentation on his computer. He glanced up, smiled at Emma, then saw me and did a double take. Emma, hi. And you brought someone? Julian, this is my husband, Noah. Noah, this is Julian. I stepped forward, hand extended, trying to look like a normal person and not someone who'd been cyberstalking him for the past 12 hours. Nice to finally meet you properly. Julian shook my hand, looking confused, but polite. Finally. Have we met improperly before? Long story, Emma said quickly. The short version is that Noah thought we were having an affair. Julian's eyes went wide. Then he laughed. A genuine surprised laugh. Wait, seriously, Emma? You didn't tell him about I know. My fault. I should have mentioned my incredibly gay COO who I work with constantly. Incredibly gay. Julian agreed, still grinning. Like aggressively homosexual. Marcus and I just adopted a second Pomeranian. We named her Versace. We're those people now. I felt my face burning. I'm really sorry for assuming things and possibly stalking your Instagram. Did you send me a follow request from an account called Definitely Not Noah Carter? Maybe. I thought that was spam. He turned to his computer, pulling up Instagram. Marcus and I were trying to figure out if it was a bot or just someone with a really unfortunate naming convention. It's the second thing, I admitted. I'm not great at this, clearly. But Julian was smiling. Look, no hard feelings. Emma's amazing, and I can see why you'd be protective. Though, for the record, even if I were straight, she'd still pick you. She talks about you constantly. She does. Constantly, Julian confirmed. Last week, she spent 20 minutes telling me about how you learned to make her mom's soup. I know more about that soup than I know about our Q3 projections. Emma looked embarrassed. I don't talk about him that much. You literally have a photo of him on your desk wearing those taco pajamas. Those pajamas are adorable. They're very adorable. Julian agreed. Noah, you seem like a good guy. How about we all grab lunch sometime? You, me, Emma, and Marcus. We can all properly meet and you can see that I'm not a threat to your marriage. Just a threat to Emma's color-coordinated filing system because I keep putting things in the wrong folders. Lunch sounds great, I said, meaning it. And sorry again for being a paranoid weirdo. We've all been there, Julian said kindly. Marcus once thought I was cheating on him because I was being secretive about my phone. Turns out I was just planning his surprise birthday party. He felt like an idiot for weeks. That actually makes me feel a lot better. Good. Now get out of here, both of you. I've got a presentation in 10 minutes, and I need to fix whatever organizational chaos happened while I was distracted. Emma and I left Julian's office and walked back to the elevator in silence. Once the doors closed, she turned to me. So, feel better? Much better. Also much dumber, but in a good way. You're lucky I love you. I really am. The elevator dinged and the doors opened into the lobby. Guardzilla was back at his post. He saw me and Emma together and did a visible double take. Ma'am, he said to Emma. I didn't realize you and this gentleman were acquainted. This is my husband, Emma said firmly. Noah Carter. He'll be visiting occasionally, so please add him to the approved visitors list. The guard looked at me, then at Emma, then back at me. His brain was clearly working overtime, trying to reconcile whatever alternate reality he'd been living in. But I thought Mr. Reed was my COO, Emma finished. Just my COO. This is my actual husband, right? Yes, of course. I'll update the system immediately. He was typing furiously on his computer, probably wishing the floor would swallow him whole. Em and I walked out into the sunshine, hand in hand. I can't believe that guard has thought Julian was your husband this entire time, I said. I can't believe you created an entire conspiracy theory instead of just asking me about it. In my defense, the evidence was very compelling. The evidence was you being jealous and jumping to conclusions. Same thing. She laughed, pulling me closer. Come on, let's go home. You're making me that 4-hour soup tonight as penance. Worth it, I said, kissing her temple. And it was. That evening, standing in our kitchen chopping vegetables for Emma's mom's legendary soup, I had what you might call an epiphany, or maybe just a realization that I'm the kind of person who should probably talk to a therapist about his trust issues and tendency to catastrophize. You're doing it again, Emma said from the couch where she was supposedly working but was actually watching me with amusement. Doing what? That thing where you overthink while cooking. Your face gets all scrunched up. It's very cute and also slightly concerning. I set down the knife. I'm just thinking about how stupid I was. We've established that. No, but like really stupid. Emma, I followed you. I created fake social media accounts. I spent hours convinced you were cheating on me instead of just asking you a simple question. She closed her laptop and came over to the kitchen island, settling onto one of our stools, the ones we bought at IKEA and spent 6 hours assembling cause neither of us believed in reading instructions. Okay, she said seriously, let's actually talk about this, not the Julian thing. We had beaten that horse to death. But the real question, why didn't you feel like you could just ask me? I focused very hard on dicing an onion, which was convenient because now I had an excuse for my eyes watering. Because I was scared of what? The answer. I set down the knife again because apparently we were doing this now. When I saw you with Julian, saw how you laughed with him, how comfortable you were, how you guys just fit together in this professional power couple way, I realized I never feel like I fit into your world. My world? Yeah. Your world of corner offices and business trips and wearing clothes that cost more than my car. I work from home in pajamas, Emma. I spend my days troubleshooting other people's computer problems. I'm not exciting. I'm not sophisticated. I'm just me. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she got up, walked around the island, and hugged me from behind, resting her chin on my shoulder. You want to know why I fell in love with you? She asked softly. Because I am devastatingly handsome and charming. Because on our second date, you spilled wine on my dress, panicked, and tried to clean it with club soda while simultaneously apologizing and explaining the scientific properties of carbonation. You were so earnest and dorky and completely yourself. You didn't try to be smooth or impressive. You were just Noah. That's a low bar. It's not though. She squeezed me tighter. Do you know how exhausting it is to be on all the time? To be CEO Emma who is all the answers and never shows weakness. When I come home to you, I don't have to be that person. I can be Emma who burns dinner and laughs at stupid jokes and admits when she doesn't know something. You make me feel like I can breathe. I turned around to face her. Really? Really? And yeah, Julian and I work well together. We're running a company, but at the end of the day, he goes home to Marcus and their designer dogs. And I come home to you in your taco pajamas. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Even though I'm a paranoid idiot who stalks you through restaurant windows, especially because of that. She kissed me though. We're going to work on the communication thing. Deal. Deal. Good. Now finish that soup. I'm starving and you owe me approximately 17 hours of cooking for putting me through this drama. I got back to chopping, but this time I was smiling. Hey yeah. Thanks for not leaving me for someone with better hair and an actual ability to dress themselves. Thanks for not filing for divorce when I accidentally let our security guard think Julian was my husband for 6 months. How did you not notice that, by the way? She shrugged. I don't usually pay attention to what security guards think. I'm too busy running a company and dealing with my husband's creative crisis management techniques. That's fair. The soup took 4 hours just like it was supposed to. We ate it at 11 p.m. sitting on the couch with the TV playing something neither of us was really watching. And it was perfect. Not because the soup was good, though it was, but because we were good. We were us again without the shadow of Julian Reed's perfect hair and my catastrophic insecurity hanging over everything. You know what we should do? Emma said suddenly. Sleep. It's almost midnight. Tomorrow we should invite Julian and Marcus over for dinner. Let you properly meet them in a non-stalker capacity. I groaned. Do we have to? Yes, because you're going to become friends with Julian and then you're going to feel even more stupid about this whole thing and it's going to be hilarious to watch. You're enjoying this way too much. I've earned it. I just found out my husband has been conducting surveillance on me like I'm in a spy thriller. Let me have this. Fine, but I'm not wearing actual pants. If they're coming to our place, they get the full taco pajama experience. I wouldn't have it any other way. The next morning, I woke up to Emma already dressed for work, standing over me with her phone. Julian says they can do dinner Friday, she announced. Marcus is excited to meet you. Apparently, Julian told him the whole story, and now Marcus thinks it's the funniest thing he's ever heard. I pulled the pillow over my face. Great. I'm a comedy routine. You are, and it's adorable. She pulled the pillow away and kissed my forehead. I've got to run conference call in 20 minutes, but I left you a project. A project? Check your email. She left before I could ask what she meant, which should have been my first clue that I was in trouble. I grabbed my laptop and opened my email. There, sitting at the top of my inbox, was a message from Emma with the subject line, "Your new assignment." I opened it. Noah, since you've apparently discovered a hidden talent for investigation, albeit misguided investigation, I'm putting those skills to use. Brightline is working on a new community project, and we need someone to research and compile information about local children's charities. It's volunteer work, but it comes with the following benefits. 1. You get to feel useful. You'll learn more about what I actually do all day. Can stop imagining I'm having secret affairs and start imagining I don't know. Whatever normal people imagine about their spouses attached are some preliminary documents. Let me know if you're interested. And Noah, I love you, you ridiculous human.
I opened the attachments.
There were files about children's hospitals, literacy programs, community centers, all marked with notes about budget projections, and potential partnerships. One file was labeled Reed Family Foundation. Reed as in Julian Reed. I clicked it open. Inside were documents about a charity run by Julian's family focused on pediatric care and support for families with children facing serious medical conditions. There were photos of Julian with his sister Victoria and her son, the same photos I'd seen on his social media, but with more context. Victoria had been diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago. Julian had started the foundation to help cover her treatment costs and support other families going through similar situations. The foundation had grown significantly and now Brightline Media was partnering with them to build a new children's wing at Mercy General Hospital. There was a photo from last month. Emma and Julian at the groundbreaking ceremony, both wearing hard hats and holding shovels, surrounded by kids and families. Emma was laughing, one arm around Julian's shoulder, the other high-fiving a little girl in a wheelchair. This was what she'd been working on. This was why she'd been spending so much time with Julian. Not because they were having an affair, but because they were trying to do something good, something that actually mattered. And I'd been too busy playing detective to notice. I spent the rest of the day reading through the documents, making notes, researching similar programs in other cities. By the time Emma came home at 7 p.m., I had a full report compiled, complete with recommendations, budget suggestions, and a list of potential partners. So she asked, dropping her briefcase by the door. "What do you think?" "I think you're amazing," I said honestly. "And I think I'm an idiot for not asking what you were actually doing instead of assuming the worst." She smiled, coming over to look at my laptop. "These are good notes. Really good. Did you find the information about the children's literacy program?" "Yeah, I think you should partner with them, too. They're already established in the community, and it would help with outreach." "That's exactly what Julian said." She paused. "You know, you could actually help with this project. We need someone to coordinate the community outreach, and you're good with people. I work in IT support. You help confused people solve problems all day. That's literally what community outreach is." I looked at the documents on my screen, then at Emma's hopeful expression. "You really want me involved in this?" "I really do. I meant what I said in that email. I want you to understand what I do, and I think you'd be good at this. Plus, you'd get to work with Julian, which means you can finally realize he's just a regular person who happens to have better fashion sense than most." "When you put it that way, is that a yes?" "That's a yes. But I'm still wearing the taco pajamas to dinner on Friday. Wouldn't dream of changing that rule." Friday came faster than I expected. Which is to say, I had 3 full days to panic about meeting Julian and Marcus in a non-professional, actually social capacity, where they would definitely judge my life choices and apartment decor. "Stop cleaning," Emma said, watching me wipe down the kitchen counter for the 3rd time. "They're not the cleanliness police." Marcus has a Pomeranian named Chanel. Chanel? These are people who understand aesthetics. People who probably have throw pillows that cost more than our couch. "Noah, I'm spiraling. I'm aware I'm spiraling, but I can't stop." The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. because, of course, they were punctual. I opened the door to find Julian looking somehow even more put together in casual clothes. Dark jeans, a crisp white button-down, and a blazer that probably had its own insurance policy. Beside him was Marcus, tall, black, with locks pulled back in a bun and a smile that could power a small city. "Noah," Marcus said warmly, immediately going in for a hug like we were old friends. "I've heard so much about you. The Instagram stalking story, chef's kiss. Julian's been dining out on that all week. Glad I could provide entertainment," I said, trying not to be awkward and definitely being awkward. "Don't mind him," Julian said, holding up a bottle of wine. "He thinks everything is hilarious. We brought Sans Sur. Emma mentioned you guys like white wine." "We do. Come in. Please excuse the apartment. It's small and our elevator breaks a lot. But it has character." "Character is just code for problems," Marcus said laughing. "We love it. Our place is character too. Last week our dishwasher started making sounds like a dying whale. I immediately liked him." Emma emerged from the bedroom, having changed out of her work clothes into jeans and one of my old college sweatshirts. The ultimate sign that she was comfortable. "Marcus, Julian, come in. Make yourselves at home." We settled in the living room, which suddenly felt much smaller with 4 adults in it. I'd made appetizers, fancy cheese, and crackers cause I'd watched exactly one YouTube video about entertaining, and poured wine with hands that only shook a little. "So, Noah," Marcus said, diving right in because apparently he didn't believe in small talk. "Julian tells me you thought he was stealing your wife." "Marcus," Julian groaned. "What? It's funny and honestly kind of sweet. Shows you care. Shows I am paranoid and need therapy." I corrected. "Okay, that too, but in a romantic way." Emma laughed. "I've been telling him the same thing. The paranoia is concerning, but the protectiveness is cute." "I'm right here," I protested. "We know," all 3 of them said in unison. Dinner was surprisingly easy after that. We ate the soup I'd made. Marcus had 2 bowls and declared it dangerously good and talked about everything from Marcus' work as a graphic designer to Julian's ongoing battle with their condo board about noise complaints from their Pomeranians. "They're small dogs," Marcus said passionately. "How much noise can they possibly make? They bark at literally everything." Julian said, "Last week, Chanel barked at her own reflection for 20 minutes. She's very security conscious. She's neurotic. She gets it from you." Emma and I exchanged glances. They bickered like an old married couple, which they basically were. How did you guys meet? I asked. Dating app, Marcus said. Julian's profile said he was looking for someone who appreciated fine wine and finer dogs. I did not write that. You absolutely did. I have screenshots. Those are fabricated evidence. You're a terrible liar. Marcus turned to us. Anyway, we matched, went to dinner, and he showed up wearing 3 different patterns that somehow all clashed. I knew immediately I'd found my project. Your project? Julian asked, offended. Baby, you needed help. You were wearing a striped shirt with a plaid blazer. That's a cry for help. Emma helps me now, Julian said defensively. And I'm very proud of her for taking on that burden. I was laughing so hard I almost spilled my wine. These weren't the sophisticated, intimidating people I'd built up in my head. They were just normal, funny, real. After dinner, while Emma and Marcus were in the kitchen loading the dishwasher and arguing about the correct way to arrange plates, Julian and I ended up on the balcony. It was small, barely big enough for 2 people, but it had a decent view of the city lights. Thanks for coming, I said. I know this whole thing has been weird. It's not that weird, Julian replied. I get it. You love Emma, and from the outside, I can see how our relationship might look questionable. Still, I should have trusted her. Should have trusted that she wouldn't do something like that. You're human. Humans get scared and make stupid decisions. Trust me, Marcus and I have had our moments, too. Last year, I got paranoid because he was being secretive about his phone. Turned out he was planning a surprise trip to Paris for our anniversary, but I'd convinced myself he was talking to his ex. Really? Really? I even checked his phone while he was in the shower. What did you find? Flight confirmations and hotel reservations. I felt like the world's biggest idiot. But Marcus was actually kind of touched that I cared enough to be jealous, even though the jealousy itself was stupid. That's exactly how Emma reacted. Because when you love someone, their flaws become endearing instead of annoying most of the time. Anyway, we stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city. Hey, Julian. Yeah, I'm glad Emma has you as a partner. I mean, a work partner. Someone who gets what she's trying to do and supports her. I'm glad she has you, Julian said. She talks about you constantly. Did you know that? She mentioned it. No, but like constantly. Last week, we had a 3-hour strategy meeting, and she somehow worked you into the conversation at least 5 times. It's actually impressive how she manages to connect quarterly projections to your taco pajamas. I laughed. Those pajamas are a gift. They really are. Marcus and Emma joined us on the balcony, which was definitely too small for 4 people, but we made it work. What are you boys talking about? Emma asked. Your husband's excellent taste in sleepwear, Julian said. And how we're all idiots sometimes, I added. Cheers to that, Marcus said, raising his wine glass. We all clinked glasses, standing on a tiny balcony in an apartment with character. And I thought, this is good. This is what it's supposed to feel like. 3 weeks later, Emma came home with that smile, the one that meant she was up to something, and I was either going to love it or be deeply concerned. What did you do? I asked immediately. Why do you assume I did something? Because you have your scheming face on. I don't have a scheming face. You absolutely do. It's the same face you had before you surprised me with that weekend trip to the mountains where we got lost for 3 hours because you insisted you knew the way without GPS. We found our way eventually. Emma, she sighed, pulling an envelope from her bag. Okay, fine. I have something for you, but you have to promise not to be weird about it. I'm always weird about things, more weird than usual. I took the envelope, which was heavier than expected. Inside was an invitation. Fancy card stock, embossed lettering, the works. You are cordially invited to the grand opening of the Carter Wing at Mercy General Hospital. The Carter Wing? I looked up at her. What is this? Remember that consulting bonus you got last year? The big one from that corporate client you spent 6 months helping? Yeah. You told me to invest it somewhere it would make a difference. So, I did. I used it as the seed funding for the children's hospital wing we've been building with Julian's foundation. I stared at the invitation. My name, our name on a hospital wing. Emma, that was $50,000. I know. And it helped leverage another $200,000 in matching donations. Noah, you funded the first phase of this project. Julian and I just finished it. My eyes were definitely watering now, and this time there were no onions to blame. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that you're part of this. You're part of what we're building. You might work from home in taco pajamas, but you're making a difference. I pulled her into a hug, holding on tight. Have I mentioned that I love you? Once or twice, she murmured into my shoulder. But I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, even when I'm being a paranoid idiot who creates conspiracy theories instead of just asking questions. Especially then. The grand opening was scheduled for the following Saturday. Emma had arranged for us to get a tour beforehand, so we showed up early. Me in an actual suit, Emma in a dress that made her look like she was about to broker world peace. Julian and Marcus were already there along with Victoria and her son Tyler. The kid was in remission now, looking healthy and energetic, running around the new wing with the kind of enthusiasm only children can muster. Noah. Victoria came over, shaking my hand warmly. I wanted to thank you personally. Julian told me about your contribution. It means everything to our family. I'm just glad I could help, I said, feeling awkward but genuine. You did more than help. You gave Tyler and kids like him a chance at better care, better treatment, better futures. Her eyes were shiny. That's not nothing. Tyler ran over, tugging on my sleeve. Are you the pajama guy? I looked at Julian, who suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. I may have mentioned your iconic sleepwear, he admitted. I am indeed the pajama guy, I told Tyler. Cool. Uncle Julian says you're funny. Uncle Julian is being generous. He also says you thought he was married to your wife. Okay, we're done with story time, Julian said quickly, steering Tyler away. Let's go look at the playroom. Marcus was laughing so hard he had to sit down. I love this kid. The grand opening ceremony was bigger than I expected. Press, donors, families, hospital staff, all gathered to celebrate the new wing. Emma gave a speech about community and investment and building futures. Julian spoke about his sister's journey and the importance of accessible healthcare. And then to my absolute horror, Emma called me up to the podium. I'd like to introduce my husband, Noah Carter, she said, gesturing for me to join her. Noah works in IT support, which means he spends his days solving problems and helping people, usually when they're frustrated and convinced their computer is possessed. But last year, he did something extraordinary. He took his consulting bonus and asked me to invest it somewhere meaningful. That investment became the foundation for this wing. Everyone was clapping. I was having an out-of-body experience. Noah represents what this project is really about. Emma continued. It's not about big corporations or fancy titles. It's about regular people choosing to make their community better. It's about small acts of generosity that create ripples we can't always see. Noah, did you want to say anything? I took the microphone with shaking hands. Public speaking was not my thing. Public speaking in front of press and donors and people who actually knew what they were doing. Absolutely not my thing. Hi. I started eloquently. I'm not great at speeches. I'm much better at fixing printers and overthinking things. But I wanted to say that this project, this wing, it's not really mine. It belongs to everyone who worked on it. To Julian and Victoria who turned a family crisis into a mission to help others. To Emma who took a random idea and made it real. To Marcus who I'm not actually sure what Marcus did, but I'm sure it was important. Emotional support. Marcus called from the audience. Right. Emotional support, which is crucial. I took a breath. Look, I'm just a guy who got lucky. I got lucky with a good job, a great wife, and the chance to help with something that matters. If you're here today, it's because you care about kids like Tyler getting the care they need. That's what matters. Not me, not my pajamas. The pajamas matter, Tyler yelled. Everyone laughed. Okay, the pajamas matter a little, I conceded. But mostly, this is about community, about choosing to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So, thank you all for being here, and thank you for caring. And I'm going to stop talking now before I say something embarrassing. Too late, Marcus shouted. More laughter. Emma squeezed my hand as I stepped away from the microphone, and I thought, this is what it's all about. Not the speeches or the recognition, but the feeling that you've been part of something good. After the ceremony, we tarred the wing properly. It was beautiful. Bright colors, murals on the walls, play areas for kids, comfortable spaces for families. In the main hallway, there was a plaque. The Carter Wing dedicated to compassion, community, and second chances. Small acts of generosity create ripples we can't always see. You use my fumbling speech quote, I asked Emma. It was a good quote, she said. Very you. Julian appeared beside us. Victoria and Tyler in tow. So, what do you think? I think this is incredible, I said. Honestly, I think you guys built something that's going to help a lot of people. We built it, Julian corrected. All of us. Team effort. Team effort. I agreed. Tyler tugged on my sleeve again. Mr. Pajama Guy. Just Noah is fine. Will you come visit sometimes when I have checkups? My heart did that thing where it simultaneously expanded and broke a little. Absolutely. I'll be here. Will you wear the pajamas, Tyler? Victoria started, but I held up a hand. You know what? Maybe I will. Hospital gowns are overrated. Taco pajamas are clearly the superior choice. Emma laughed, Marcus cheered, and Julian looked like he was reconsidering every life choice that had led to this moment. But Tyler was beaming, and that made it all worth it. 1 month after the grand opening, Emma and I attended the hospital's monthly family event, a Saturday morning thing where kids in treatment could come play games, do art projects, and just be kids for a few hours. I'd become a regular volunteer, which was simultaneously the most rewarding and most humbling thing I'd ever done. Turns out when you're not busy creating conspiracy theories about your wife's colleagues, you have time to actually do good in the world. Who knew? Tyler had become my unofficial buddy. Every time I showed up, he'd run over and demand I judge whatever Lego creation he'd made that week. The kid was building increasingly elaborate structures. Last week, he'd made a spaceship with a functioning drawbridge. I didn't even know Lego spaceships could have drawbridges. Noah. He spotted me from across the playroom and came sprinting over. Look what I made. He held up a Lego figure wearing what appeared to be pajamas made from tiny printed blocks. Is that it's you? I made Lego pajama guy. I took the figure carefully, genuinely moved. Tyler, this is the best thing anyone's ever made for me. Really? Really? Can I keep it? Duh. That's why I made it. Emma appeared beside me, camera in hand. I need a photo of this for posterity for blackmailed. You mean same thing? She snapped a picture of me holding Lego pajama guy while Tyler grinned beside me. Julian and Marcus showed up around noon bringing pizza for the kids and families. We'd fallen into an easy friendship over the past month, the kind where Marcus sent memes at 2 a.m. and Julian asked for my opinion on presentation slides even though I knew nothing about corporate presentations. The dream team, Marcus announced, setting down pizza boxes. Together again. We were literally here 3 days ago, Julian pointed out. And yet, it feels like forever. I'm sentimental. We spent the afternoon playing games with the kids, helping with art projects, and generally making fools of ourselves in the name of entertainment. Victoria found me during a brief break while I was recovering from an intense game of musical chairs that I'd lost spectacularly. I wanted to talk to you, she said, sitting beside me. If this is about my musical chairs performance, I know it was bad. The 6-year-old who beat me made sure I knew. She laughed. No, though that was entertaining. I wanted to thank you again properly this time. Victoria, you don't have to. I do, though. When Tyler got sick, I felt so helpless. We had insurance, but the costs kept piling up. And I was working full-time while trying to be there for him, and Julian was doing everything he could, and it still felt like we were drowning. This wing, what you and Emma and Julian built, it's changing lives. Not just Tyler's, but so many other families. I didn't know what to say, so I just squeezed her hand near. Tyler talks about you constantly, she continued, about the pajama guy who brings him Lego and tells bad jokes and makes him laugh. You've become part of his healing process, Noah. That matters more than any donation. I'm just showing up. That's exactly it. You're showing up consistently, genuinely. That's what these kids need. People who show up. After she walked away, Emma found me suspiciously misty-eyed by the juice boxes. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just this is good, right? What we're doing here. The best, she agreed, kissing my cheek. You're doing great. Even though I almost ruined everything by being a paranoid mess who thought you were cheating, especially because of that. Your paranoia led to us having dinner with Julian and Marcus, which led to you getting more involved with the project, which led to you being here every week making kids laugh. Sometimes stupid decisions lead to good outcomes. That's a very generous interpretation. I'm a very generous person. You really are. We stayed until closing time, 6 p.m., when families started trickling out and volunteers began cleanup. Tyler gave me a hug goodbye. That lasted approximately forever and made me seriously consider the logistics of having kids someday. See you next week, Mr. Noah? He asked. Absolutely, and I'll bring more Lego. The spaceships? The spaceships? As Emma and I were leaving, we ran into a familiar face in the parking lot. Guardzilla from Bright Line Media. Mr. Carter. He looked shocked to see me. What are you doing here? Volunteering, I said. What about you? My daughter's being treated here. Leukemia. She's in remission now, but we still come for checkups. Everything clicked into place. The new children's wing. That's why you're here. Best care she's ever received, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I heard you were involved with making it happen. I wanted to thank you. I'm glad I could help, I said, meaning it. He hesitated, then laughed awkwardly. I also wanted to apologize for that whole confusion about Mr. Reed. I realize now that probably caused some problems. Some problems was a generous way to put it, but I appreciated the acknowledgement. It's fine, I said. Actually, it kind of worked out for the best. Long story. Well, thank you anyway for everything. After he left, Emma turned to me with that smile, the one that meant she was about to say something sappy. Don't, I warned. I'm just thinking don't. About how a month ago you were stalking me through restaurant windows, and now you're a regular volunteer making actual differences in people's lives. I told you not to get sappy. Can't help it. I'm married to a reformed stalker who turned into a children's hospital volunteer. That's character growth. That's a redemption arc. I'm never going to live down the stalking thing, am I? Never. She confirmed cheerfully. I'm going to tell that story at parties for the rest of our lives. We don't go to parties. We'll start going to parties just so I can tell the story. I pulled her close, kissing her forehead. Fair enough. I deserve that. You really do. We drove home as the sun set, painting the sky in those ridiculous shades of orange and pink that look fake but somehow aren't. Emma's hand was in mine. The radio was playing something neither of us really listened to. And I thought about how weird life is. A month ago, I was convinced my marriage was falling apart. Now I was volunteering at a children's hospital wing that partially bore my name. Friends with the man I'd thought was stealing my wife and holding a Lego figure of myself in pajamas made by a 6-year-old with more creativity and wisdom than I'd probably ever have.
Hey Em, I said as we pulled into our parking spot.
Yeah, thanks for not divorcing me when I was being insane. Thanks for not actually stalking Julian beyond that one dinner. That could have gotten really awkward. I mean, I did create a burner Instagram, which he accepted immediately because he accepts everyone. The man has 3,000 followers, and he's not picky. That makes me feel simultaneously better and worse. We climbed the 4 flights to our apartment, elevator still broken, naturally, and collapsed on our couch. Emma immediately stole my sweatshirt, even though she had approximately 40 of her own. I didn't complain. This was what marriage was, sharing sweatshirts. Telling embarrassing stories at hypothetical future parties and building a life together that included both catastrophic misunderstandings and children's hospital wings. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner next Friday. Julian's cooking, which means I'm ordering backup pizza just in case. I showed Emma, who laughed. Tell him yes, but request the pizza regardless. Julian's cooking is ambitious at best. You've had his cooking once. He tried to make coq au vin and somehow both undercooked and overcooked it. I didn't know that was possible. That's actually impressive. It's something. I replied to Marcus with a yes and a pizza emoji, then tossed my phone aside. You know what's weird? I said everything about our lives. Well, yes, but specifically I'm kind of glad all this happened. The paranoia, the stalking, all of it. Emma raised an eyebrow. You're glad you convinced yourself I was having an affair. Not glad about that part. But if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have really understood what you do. I wouldn't have gotten involved with the hospital project. I wouldn't have met Marcus and actually become friends with Julian. I'd still be sitting at home in my pajamas, living completely separate from your world. And now I'm sitting at home in my pajamas, but at least I understand your world, and I'm part of it in my own weird way. She cuddled closer. I like having you in my world. Even though I'm still wearing taco pajamas, especially because you're wearing taco pajamas. Never change, Noah. Not even if Julian offers to take me shopping. He will offer. Marcus has probably already suggested it. And I should say whatever you want. But for the record, I love you exactly as you are. Questionable fashion sense and all. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped up in each other in our small apartment with its broken elevator and its character, watching the city lights flicker on as evening settled in. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Julian. Marcus tells me you said yes to dinner. Just so you know, I'm actually a competent cook. That coq au vin incident was an anomaly. Emma's propaganda campaign against my culinary skills is unfounded and borders on defamation. Then Marcus. He's already panicking about the menu. I've ordered pizza. See you Friday. Then Tyler's mom, Victoria. Tyler wanted me to tell you he's building a Lego hospital now. You're responsible for this obsession. Then a photo from Julian. Him and Marcus on their couch. Both Pomeranians asleep on their laps. Marcus making a ridiculous face while Julian looked exasperated but fond. Emma looked over my shoulder reading the messages. We have weird friends. The best kind. And I agreed. And somewhere in the city, at a hospital wing that bore our name, kids like Tyler were getting treatment and care and maybe building Lego spaceships with drawbridges. And somewhere in a corner office, a security guard was going home to his daughter who was in remission, grateful for a facility that gave her the best chance. And here in our small apartment with its character and its broken elevator and its view of the city lights, Emma and I were exactly where we needed to be together. Even if I was wearing taco pajamas, especially because I was wearing taco pajamas.
That brings this story to an end, and that one was definitely a wild ride. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, let's move into the next story, titled,
I came home for Christmas from medical deployment and asked my daughter, was the $2,000 I sent each month enough? She looked confused. What money? My parents went pale. My sister changed the subject. I didn't yell. I did this. There was a knock at the door. My name is Cassandra. I am 32 years old and a combat medic in the Army. After 9 grueling months deployed overseas, all I wanted was to hug my 14-year-old daughter, Emma. I had been sending $2,000 home every month to my parents who were caring for her. The joy of our reunion quickly turned to confusion when I casually asked if the money was enough. Emma looked at me blankly and said, "What money?" My parents went pale. My sister Amanda suddenly changed the subject. I felt my heart drop to my stomach. I never planned to be a single mother with a military career. Life has a way of reshaping your plans when you least expect it. 5 years ago, my husband Daniel died in a car accident, leaving me alone with our 9-year-old daughter, Emma. We had been high school sweethearts, married young, and had Emma when I was 18. His death shattered our world, but I had to find a way forward for Emma. The military had always been my backup plan. My father had served, and though our relationship was complicated, I respected his service. With Daniel gone, the stability of military health care and education benefits became increasingly appealing. I enlisted as a combat medic, combining my passion for health care with service. The pay was decent, and the structure gave Emma and me something we desperately needed. After losing Daniel, predictability. For 3 years, I managed to avoid overseas deployment. My unit commander understood my situation and kept me stateside. Emma and I settled into a rhythm. We lived near base in a small apartment. She made friends at school, joined the soccer team, and slowly her smile returned. Each night I would help her with homework, and on weekends we would have movie marathons or go hiking. We were healing together. Then came the orders I had been dreading. My medical unit was being deployed to a conflict zone for 9 months. My stomach dropped when I received the notification. Emma was 13 now, growing into her own person, navigating the complexities of adolescence. This was exactly when she needed her mother most. My parents lived in our hometown about 2 hours from base. They had retired early after my father sold his successful construction business. Their relationship with Emma had always been loving but distant, holiday visits, occasional weekends. My mother adored Emma but struggled with the energy a young teenager required. My father was gentle with her in a way he never had been with me. My younger sister Amanda lived nearby them with her husband. They had no children of their own yet, though they had been trying. Amanda had always been envious of my relationship with our parents, believing they favored me despite evidence to the contrary. We were cordial but not close. With limited options, I approached my parents about caring for Emma during my deployment. They agreed immediately, seeming genuinely happy to help. We discussed every detail of her care, her school schedule, extracurricular activities, dietary preferences, friend circle, and emotional needs. The financial arrangements were explicit. I would transfer $2,000 monthly to their account specifically for Emma. This would cover her food, clothing, school supplies, activities, transportation, entertainment, and allow for some saving toward her future. The amount was generous, nearly half my deployment pay, but Emma deserved every penny. My parents insisted it was too much, but I wanted Emma to maintain her quality of life and perhaps enjoy some extras to compensate for my absence. I set up the automatic transfers through my military bank account. The first payment would arrive the day after Emma moved in and continue on the first of each month thereafter. I showed my parents the confirmation of the setup, and they acknowledged the arrangement. The week before deployment was a flurry of preparation. Emma and I packed her belongings, visited her new school, and set up her bedroom at my parents' house. I bought her a special journal where she could write letters to me when video calls weren't possible. We established a communication schedule accounting for the 13-hour time difference and security restrictions. The night before I left, Emma crawled into my bed like she used to after Daniel died. "Will you be safe, Mom?" she whispered. I could not promise absolute safety, but I promised to be careful to think of her with every decision and to come home. 9 months will go by fast, I said, not believing it myself, and I will call whenever I can. Leaving Emma at my parents' house the next morning was the hardest thing I had ever done. She tried to be brave, but as I got into the taxi, her composure broke. She ran after the car, sobbing. My father had to hold her back. As I watched through the rear window, my own tears flowing freely. The image of her red face and outstretched arms haunted me throughout my deployment. The flight home felt eternal. After 9 months in a dusty field hospital treating injuries, I would never forget American soil looked like paradise. I had managed to arrange my return 3 days before Christmas, wanting to surprise Emma rather than tell her my exact arrival date. If something delayed my travel, I could not bear to disappoint her twice. My sister Amanda picked me up from the airport. She seemed tense, but I attributed it to holiday stress. On the drive to my parents' house, she updated me on family news, carefully avoiding specific mentions of Emma, except to say, "She has grown so much. You will be shocked." The reunion with Emma was everything I had dreamed about during lonely nights on deployment. When I walked through the door, she was decorating Christmas cookies in the kitchen. She dropped the frosting bag and launched herself into my arms with such force that we both nearly fell. I held her tight, noticing immediately that she was taller, her face more defined, less childlike. "You are really here," she kept saying, touching my face as if to confirm I was real. "I missed you so much, Mom." My parents hovered nearby, their expressions a mixture of joy and something I could not quite identify. My father hugged me awkwardly while my mother fussed about my weight loss and exhausted appearance. The house was decorated beautifully for Christmas with a towering tree and elaborate decorations I did not recognize from previous years. That first evening was a whirlwind of emotions. We had dinner together. Emma sitting so close to me that eating was challenging. She barely touched her food, too busy telling me about school, her friends, and books she had read. I noticed she wore jeans that were slightly too short and a sweater with worn elbows, but assumed these were just favorite comfort clothes. When Emma mentioned struggling to complete a science project because she could not afford the materials, a small alarm bell rang in my mind. My mother quickly interjected that they had eventually figured it out. My father changed the subject to my experiences overseas, carefully avoiding any mention of finances. As Emma showed me to my room, I noticed my parents' new furniture throughout the house. The living room set was clearly recent, a style my mother had pointed out in magazines for years. My father's study contained a new desktop computer setup that looked expensive. In the driveway sat a late model SUV. I did not recognize which Amanda explained was Dad's new toy. Emma seemed healthy and happy overall, yet small details troubled me. Her phone was the same model she had when I left, now with a severely cracked screen. When I asked why she had not replaced it, she shrugged and said it still worked fine. She mentioned babysitting for neighbors and helping at a local cafe on weekends to earn some spending money, which seemed unnecessary given the funds I sent. That night, after Emma fell asleep in my bed, unwilling to let me out of her sight, I checked my banking app. Every transfer had gone through exactly as planned. 9 payments of $2,000 each, totaling $18,000. The money had definitely reached my parents' account. I considered asking them directly but decided to wait. Perhaps there was a simple explanation. Perhaps they were saving the money for Emma's college fund as a surprise. Perhaps I was being paranoid after months in a combat zone where trust could be a liability. The next morning, I woke to find Emma had prepared breakfast for me, though it was just toast and fruit. "Grandma says we need to go grocery shopping today," she explained. "We do not have much food right now." My sister Amanda arrived mid-morning with her husband bringing Christmas gifts and more questions in my mind. She had a new diamond tennis bracelet she kept touching, explaining it was an early Christmas gift. When Emma admired it, Amanda promised to take her shopping when we can afford it, giving my parents a quick glance I could not interpret. Throughout the day, I noticed more inconsistencies. Emma had outgrown most of her clothes, but had few new items. Her winter boots had been patched with duct tape. Her school backpack was literally falling apart at the seams. None of this aligned with the generous allowance I had provided. By the second day of my return, the inconsistencies could no longer be ignored. While helping Emma organize her room, I casually mentioned the monthly allowance. "I hope the money I sent was enough for everything you needed," I said, folding a stack of t-shirts that all looked at least a year old. Emma stopped arranging books on her shelf and turned to me with genuine confusion. "What money?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I kept my voice carefully neutral. "The $2,000 I send every month for your expenses." Emma's eyebrows shot up. "You sent money and Grandpa said you could not afford to send anything because of your deployment expenses. They said we needed to be careful with spending because they were paying for everything." At that moment, my parents appeared in the doorway. They must have been listening. My mother's face drained of color and my father suddenly became intensely interested in a spot on the carpet. My sister, who had been passing by with a laundry basket, stopped abruptly. "Hey, who wants hot chocolate? I am making some with those peppermint marshmallows Emma loves." The transparent attempt to change the subject confirmed my growing suspicion. Something was very wrong. I smiled at Emma, not wanting to alarm her. "That sounds nice. We will be down in a minute." Once the others had gone, I closed the bedroom door and sat beside Emma on her bed. "Honey, I need you to tell me exactly what happened with money while I was gone." The story Emma told broke my heart piece by piece. My parents had told her from the beginning that I could not send money due to deployment complications. They provided her with basic necessities but complained frequently about the financial burden of caring for her. Emma had started working weekends at a local cafe when she was 14, using her earnings for school supplies, activity fees, and occasionally new clothes. "I did not want to ask you for anything," Emma explained, tears forming. "You were doing something so important and Grandma said you were already stressed about money. I sold my iPad to pay for the science trip, and when the soccer team needed new uniform fees, I just quit because I knew Grandma and Grandpa could not afford it." I pulled her into a tight hug, my mind racing with calculations. $18,000 would have covered all her needs many times over. The new furniture, my father's car, my sister's bracelet, and countless other improvements around the house suddenly made sickening sense. "Did Grandma and Grandpa ever give you an allowance?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Emma shook her head. "They gave me $10 for my birthday. Grandma said times were tight." That evening, while Emma was showering, I discreetly examined my parents' home office. In a desk drawer, I found vacation brochures for a Caribbean cruise scheduled for February. The booking confirmation showed a suite package costing over $5,000. In another folder were receipts for jewelry, electronics, and clothing that totaled thousands more. When I checked Emma's school portal using her login information, I saw her grades had slipped significantly. Comments from teachers noted increased tardiness and incomplete assignments. One teacher had written, "Emma appears tired in class." She mentioned working weekend shifts interfering with homework time. The reality was becoming undeniable. My parents had systematically diverted funds meant for Emma's care to finance their own lifestyle improvements. My daughter had been working while attending school full-time, selling her possessions and going without necessities, despite my explicit financial support. When Emma mentioned missing a dentist appointment because the insurance was complicated, I nearly lost my composure. I had provided complete documentation of her military-dependent insurance coverage that required no payment for routine care. Later that night, I cornered my sister in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed. "Did you know they were taking Emma's money?" I asked directly. Amanda fidgeted with her bracelet. "I did not know the whole story," she hedged. "Mom and Dad mentioned you sent some money for emergencies, but said it was not much. They complained about expenses a lot. They received $2,000 every month, specifically for Emma," I stated flatly. Amanda had the decency to look shocked at the amount, though I doubted her surprise was genuine. "Well, childcare is expensive," she eventually said. "They deserve something for taking her in." "Taking her in? She is their granddaughter, not a stray dog," I replied, struggling to keep my voice down. "And I would have happily paid them separately for their time if they had asked. That money was explicitly for Emma's needs." Amanda shrugged uncomfortably. "You should talk to them, not me. I am sure they had their reasons." As I lay awake that night with Emma sleeping soundly beside me, I formulated a plan. The betrayal cut deep, but impulsive confrontation would only create more trauma for Emma during what should be a happy reunion. Christmas was 2 days away. Extended family would be arriving. I needed to be strategic, not emotional. The next morning, I woke early and drove to a nearby coffee shop with free Wi-Fi. Emma was still sleeping, exhausted from the emotional excitement of my return. I needed privacy for what came next, First, I downloaded my complete banking records for the past 9 months, documenting every $2,000 transfer with dates, confirmation numbers, and account details. The paper trail was unambiguous. Next, I called my unit's legal assistance office. As an active duty service member, I had access to free legal counsel. I explained the situation without emotion, focusing on facts. The attorney on call advised me that what my parents had done could potentially qualify as financial exploitation, particularly given that the funds were designated for a minor's care. He promised to email me relevant documentation and offered to connect me with local resources. When I returned to the house, my mother was making breakfast, acting as if nothing was amiss. "We are going to the mall later to finish Christmas shopping," she announced. "Do you need anything?" "Actually, I would like to take Emma shopping for some clothes," I replied. "I noticed she has outgrown most of what she has." My mother's smile faltered. "We got her some things a few months ago. Kids grow so fast at this age." "I can see that," I said pleasantly. "She could use some new winter boots, too." The duct tape repair is creative, but not very warm. My mother busied herself with pancake batter. "Things have been tight, you know. Your father's medication costs went up." This was news to me. "What medication is Dad okay?" "Oh, just blood pressure. Nothing serious." She waved dismissively, then added, "But insurance only covers part of it." My father had excellent retirement health coverage that I knew included prescription benefits. Another lie. While Emma and I were getting ready to leave, I overheard my parents arguing in their bedroom. "She knows something," my mother hissed. "You need to stick to the story about medical expenses." "What about the car?" my father responded. "We cannot exactly hide that. Say it was a good deal you could not pass up. Use your retirement account excuse." "And the cruise brochures in the office." My sister's voice joined the conversation. "I told you to hide those. Just keep things normal through Christmas. She will go back to base soon anyway." Their casual assumption that I would simply return to duty without addressing the situation infuriated me, but I maintained my composure. This was about evidence gathering. Now, at the mall, Emma and I had our first truly private conversation. Over lunch in the food court, I asked her more about the past 9 months. Each new detail strengthened my resolve. "I worked every Saturday and Sunday morning at Cafe Luna," she explained. "The owner, Mrs. Garcia, gave me extra shifts during school breaks. That is how I bought my Christmas presents this year." "Did Grandma and Grandpa know you were working so much?" Emma nodded. "They drove me sometimes, but usually I rode my bike. It is about 2 meters each way." "In winter?" I asked, remembering the harsh local weather. "It was not so bad," she shrugged. "I wore lots of layers." I learned that Emma had sold not just her iPad, but also the collection of fantasy novels I had given her over the years, her wireless headphones, and even the silver locket containing a photo of her father and me. "Mr. Winters at the pawn shop gave me $50 for the locket," she said, eyes downcast. "I needed it for the graphing calculator for math class. Grandma said they were too expensive and I should borrow one, but nobody would lend theirs for the whole semester." Each revelation was a fresh wound, but I maintained a supportive demeanor. "You did what you thought was right, Emma. I am proud of your resourcefulness, but I wish you had not needed to work so hard or sell your treasured possessions." That afternoon, I insisted on driving Emma to visit her friend Lily, giving me an opportunity to speak with Lily's mother, Kate. We had been friendly before my deployment, and I trusted her perspective. Kate confirmed my fears. "We were all concerned about Emma," she admitted after Emma had gone upstairs. "She would never join the girls for weekend activities because of work. She wore the same few outfits repeatedly. At Lily's birthday sleepover, she did not bring a gift and was so embarrassed we pretended it had gotten lost." "Did she ever mention money problems?" I asked. "She said her grandparents were on a fixed income and could not afford extras. We offered to pay her way several times, but she refused." "Such a proud girl." Kate hesitated. "I hope you do not mind, but I bought her new jeans and gave them to her as a random gift. Her pants were inches too short by spring." I thanked Kate for her kindness and asked if she would be willing to provide a written statement about her observations if needed. She agreed without hesitation. While Emma visited with Lily, I drove to her school. The building was closed for winter break, but I had scheduled an appointment with her guidance counselor, Mrs. Reynolds, who had agreed to meet briefly. Mrs. Reynolds' assessment was equally troubling. Emma's academic performance dropped noticeably around March. She went from a straight A student to mostly C's and B's. Her math teacher reported she often fell asleep in class. When we discussed it, Emma attributed it to working weekend mornings starting at 5:30. Did anyone contact my parents about this? I asked multiple times. They assured us it was temporary and that Emma was just adjusting to your absence. When we suggested reducing her work hours, they said it was Emma's choice and built character. Mrs. Reynolds looked troubled. We were concerned, but without evidence of neglect, our options were limited. I thanked her for meeting during the holiday and asked if the school had documentation of these conversations. She assured me they maintained detailed records of all parent communications. By evening, when we returned to my parents' house, I had gathered substantial evidence. I had photographs of Emma's inadequate clothing and worn shoes, testimony from her friend's mother, school documentation of academic decline, work, verification from her employer, and bank records proving the money transfers. I also had Emma's journal, which she had voluntarily shared with me. Her entries documented numerous instances of being told they could not afford basic items she needed. Her grandparents' frequent complaints about financial burden and her own guilt about being expensive to keep. One particularly heartbreaking entry read, called Mom today but could not tell her about needing money for the field trip. She looked so tired on the video call, and Grandma said Mom is struggling to pay for her own food on deployment. I will just tell my teacher I am sick that day. That night I helped Emma wrap Christmas presents for the family. She had spent her cafe earnings on thoughtful but inexpensive gifts: homemade cookies for relatives, a coffee mug for my father, a scarf for my mother, and a photo frame for me. Meanwhile, I had noticed shopping bags from luxury retailers hidden in my parents' closet when I was searching for wrapping paper. The contrast could not have been more stark. While my daughter worked weekends and sold cherished possessions to afford a $10 photo frame, my parents had diverted thousands of dollars meant for her care to fund luxuries for themselves. Christmas Eve was tomorrow. Extended family would gather, and I would be ready. Christmas Eve morning dawned bright and cold. I had barely slept, my mind cycling through various approaches to the confrontation ahead. Emma sensed my distraction but attributed it to readjustment from deployment. In reality, I was executing a carefully considered plan. Step 1 was financial protection. While Emma helped my mother prepare breakfast, I visited the local branch of my bank. As a precaution, I had already frozen the automatic transfers from my deployment account. Now, I established a new checking account with Emma as a joint holder, transferring funds from my savings to cover her immediate needs. The banker, a veteran herself, expedited the process when I explained I had just returned from deployment. Next, I called Lieutenant Colonel Richards, my former commanding officer and a trusted mentor. Now retired and practicing family law, she had offered guidance during difficult situations in the past. When I explained the circumstances, her advice was measured but firm. Document everything, Cassandra. Texts, emails, bank statements, photos. Wisconsin has specific statutes addressing financial exploitation of dependent that may apply here. She paused. Are you planning to confront them today? Extended family will be present, I explained. Witnesses make denial harder. Just remember, this is ultimately about Emma's well-being. Whatever approach causes her the least additional trauma should guide your decisions. She was right. Of course, this could not be about revenge or even justice in a conventional sense. It needed to be about recovery, financial and emotional, for Emma. My third call was to Staff Sergeant Martinez from my unit, now working in the JAG office. He confirmed that military family service centers could provide resources, including emergency financial assistance if needed, though my careful saving had made this unnecessary. More importantly, he offered to connect me with a victim advocate who specialized in financial recovery cases. The power dynamic with parents is complicated, he noted. Having a neutral third party can help maintain boundaries during resolution. By mid-morning, I had secured legal consultation, financial protection, and support resources. Now came the most difficult step, a private conversation with Emma about what would happen next. I took her to a nearby park away from prying ears. The winter playground was deserted, allowing us privacy on a bench overlooking a frozen pond. Honey, we need to talk about something important, I began. It is about the money I sent for your care while I was deployed. Emma tensed immediately. Are Grandma and Grandpa in trouble? They were nice to let me stay. This is not about gratitude or blame right now, I said carefully. It is about facts. I sent $2,000 every month specifically for your needs. Clothes, school activities, Maybe some fun experiences to make my absence easier. That money never reached you. Emma's expression crumpled. They said you could not afford to send anything. That caring for me was straining their retirement. That was not true, I said gently. I sent more than enough to cover everything you needed and then some. Emma processed this information slowly, her analytical mind connecting dots. The new car, Mom's jewelry, the kitchen renovation. I nodded. Possibly yes. Her face flushed with anger, then embarrassment. I worked every weekend making coffee for strangers while they spent my money on stuff I sold Dad's locket. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought I was helping by not asking for things. I thought we were all struggling together. I pulled her close as she sobbed against my shoulder. This was the rawness I had hoped to avoid. Yet, it was necessary for her to understand she had done nothing wrong. You did help, Emma. You showed incredible responsibility and maturity. I am so proud of you for that. But you should never have had to sacrifice your education, your possessions, or your limited childhood free time. That responsibility was mine, and I entrusted it to people who failed us both. When her tears subsided, I explained my plan. Tonight, when everyone is here, I'm going to address this directly. It might be uncomfortable. Are you okay with that, or would you prefer to stay with Lily's family? Emma straightened her shoulders. I want to be there. They lied to me all year, Mom. I want to hear what they say. I nodded, respecting her choice while making a mental note to watch her reactions carefully. After tonight, we have options. We can stay here through Christmas if you want to see the extended family, or we can go to a hotel or even head back to base early. This is your call, too. What about the money? She asked. I will handle that part, I assured her. Your job is to focus on healing and enjoying our reunion. Let me worry about the financial recovery. Emma considered this, then asked the question that revealed her fundamental goodness. Will Grandma and Grandpa go to jail? That is not my goal, I answered honestly. My goal is accountability and restoration. They need to acknowledge what they did and make meaningful amends. If they cannot do that, then legal consequences might become necessary, but that would be their choice, not mine. Emma nodded, seeming relieved. Despite everything, she cared about her grandparents. This compassion in the face of betrayal made me even more determined to handle the situation with calculated precision rather than emotional reaction. Back at the house, preparations for the evening gathering were underway. My sister and her husband had arrived early to help. My mother was preparing elaborate appetizers in the kitchen, periodically shooting me nervous glances. My father was setting up extra chairs in the living room, his movements stiff with unspoken tension. I maintained a calm, neutral demeanor while finalizing my approach. The confrontation needed to be direct but controlled, factual rather than accusatory, and focused on resolution rather than punishment. Most importantly, it needed to acknowledge Emma's experience without making her the center of uncomfortable attention. While everyone was busy, I slipped into the home office and connected my phone to the printer. The documentation I had gathered formed a compelling narrative: bank statements showing the transfers, photos of Emma's inadequate clothing and school supplies, work records from the cafe, showing her weekend shifts, school reports documenting her academic decline, and statements from her teacher, counselor, and friend's mother. I organized these materials into 3 identical folders, adding a typed summary of events and a proposed resolution plan. One folder would remain with me, one would be presented to my parents, and one would be given to my Aunt Susan, my father's sister, and the family matriarch, whose moral authority was respected by all. As evening approached, I helped Emma prepare for the gathering. We had purchased a new outfit during our shopping trip, and she looked beautiful and age-appropriate in a festive sweater and jeans that actually fit. The simple dignity of proper clothing brought a lump to my throat. Ready? I asked as we heard the first guests arriving. Emma squeezed my hand. Ready, Mom. We descended the stairs together, stepping into the gathering storm with heads held high. By 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve, the house was filled with extended family. My father's sisters, Susan and Elaine, had arrived with their husbands. My mother's brother, Robert, and his wife, came bearing elaborately wrapped gifts. Cousins with spouses and children completed the gathering, creating a festive atmosphere tinged with the awkwardness that often characterizes family holiday events. Emma stayed close to me, receiving hugs and exclamations about how much she had grown. My sister Amanda hovered nearby, her smile fixed, but her eyes watchful. My parents played perfect hosts, my father mixing drinks while my mother arranged food platters, both carefully maintaining the appearance of a normal family Christmas. Aunt Susan pulled me aside early in the evening. "You look tired, Cassandra. That deployment must have been rough." "The deployment was difficult," I acknowledged. "But what I found upon returning home has been equally challenging." Something in my tone made her study me more closely. "Is everything all right with Emma?" she asked perceptively. "We will be discussing that during dinner," I replied. "I would appreciate your attention when we do." My aunt, never one to miss subtleties, nodded slowly. "You know I am always in your corner." Dinner was served buffet style at 8, with everyone finding seats around the extended dining table and adjacent card tables set up for the occasion. I strategically positioned myself at the main table with Emma beside me, directly across from my parents. Aunt Susan sat to my right, completing the critical sight lines for what would follow. Conversation flowed around typical family topics. Cousin Jamie Unc greater than S new job, Uncle Robert's knee replacement, the children's school achievements. I participated minimally, waiting for the natural lull that would come after everyone had been served and settled. When that moment arrived, I gently tapped my water glass with a spoon. The conversations gradually quieted as attention turned my way. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight." I began, my voice steady. "Being home for Christmas after 9 months deployed is a gift I do not take for granted. Having Emma back in my arms is everything I dreamed about during difficult days overseas." Murmurs of appreciation and supportive comments rippled around the table. While I was gone, I continued. I made arrangements to ensure Emma would be well cared for. This included sending $2,000 home each month specifically for her needs. I paused, watching my parents' expressions shift from social smiles to frozen masks. That totaled $18,000 over 9 months. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass. My father stared fixedly at his plate. "Yesterday, I discovered that Emma never received any benefit from those funds. In fact, she was told that I could not afford to send money and that her presence was a financial burden." A shocked silence fell over the table. Emma looked down at her lap, uncomfortable with the attention yet resolute in her quiet dignity. While Emma worked weekends at a local cafe to pay for school supplies and sold personal possessions to afford field trips, these funds were diverted to home renovations. A new vehicle, luxury items, and vacation planning. My sister Amanda interjected, her voice artificially bright. "I'm sure there is a misunderstanding about the expenses involved in raising a teenager. Perhaps we should discuss this privately after dinner." "There is no misunderstanding," I replied evenly, sliding the folders from beneath my chair. These contain complete documentation, bank transfers, Emma's work records, statements from school officials, and testimony from community members who witnessed her going without necessities. I placed one folder in front of my parents and handed the other to Aunt Susan, whose expression had hardened into something resembling her brother's face when he was especially disappointed. Emma maintained a 3.22 grade point average, while working weekends, received no allowance, missed medical appointments, and was denied participation in school activities due to supposed financial constraints. My voice remained measured despite the anger burning beneath my words. Meanwhile, $18,000 that should have provided her a comfortable life instead furnished this house and funded luxuries I am still discovering. My father finally spoke, his voice defensive. "Now wait a minute. Do you have any idea what it costs to raise a child these days? Food, utilities, transportation." "I do know," I interrupted. "I have been raising her alone for 5 years. $2,000 monthly was calculated to cover all reasonable expenses several times over. We never agreed to an accounting of every penny," my mother said, attempting indignation. "We provided a home supervision and love. Love does not send a 14-year-old girl to work at 5:30 in the morning while her guardians sleep in." I countered. "Love does not force a child to sell her father's locket to buy a calculator for school." Emma flinched at this revelation, and several relatives gasped audibly. My Uncle Robert, always the family peacemaker, tried to intervene. Surely there were misunderstandings on both sides. "Perhaps there was no misunderstanding," Emma said. Suddenly, her voice small but determined. "Grandma specifically told me Mom could not afford to send money because of deployment expenses. When I needed $65 for the Science Museum trip, she said they could not spare it, so I sold my iPad. I worked every weekend for months so I would not be a burden." The raw honesty of her statement silenced every attempt at deflection. My mother's face crumpled. Whether from shame or being caught, I could not tell. My father tried a different approach. We may have mismanaged some aspects of the arrangement, but we provided a safe home. Child care has value too. You know, if you felt you deserved compensation for your time, you should have said so, I replied. I would have gladly provided it separately. Instead, you chose to lie to Emma about my financial support while using funds designated for her care for personal luxuries. Aunt Susan, who had been silently reviewing the documentation, looked up with cold fury. A Caribbean cruise, Thomas. While your granddaughter worked as a barista and wore duct tape boots. My father had the decency to look ashamed, but my mother attempted one more deflection. We planned to pay it back. We had unexpected expenses this year. What expenses justified taking from a child in your care? I asked. The kitchen renovation, the jewelry, the new patio furniture. When no answer came, I continued to the next phase of my planned approach. I am not interested in public humiliation or family division. I am interested in accountability and making this right for Emma. These are my terms. Full accounting and repayment of the funds, a direct apology to Emma acknowledging the specific harm done, and a written agreement regarding any future financial or guardianship arrangements. Or what my father asked, a hint of his old authority creeping into his voice. Or, I will file formal charges of financial exploitation of a dependent minor, I stated calmly. My military legal counsel has already outlined the potential consequences, both criminal and civil. My sister, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly found her voice. You would sue your own parents after they took Emma in when you chose to deploy. I did not choose deployment, Amanda. I received orders which I followed while trusting my family to honor their commitments to my child. I turned to face her directly. And yes, I would pursue legal remedies if necessary, just as I would for any other form of child neglect or exploitation. I knew nothing about this, she insisted weakly. Your new bracelet suggests otherwise, I observed. As does your presence during conversations about keeping the story straight regarding the missing money. The extended family sat in stunned silence. Uncle Robert's wife was openly crying. Aunt Susan had moved to sit beside Emma, her arm protectively around my daughter's shoulders. What happens now? My mother asked, her voice small. Tonight, nothing more. This is Christmas Eve, and I will not rob the family of their celebration. Emma and I will participate as planned. I looked around the table, but come December 26th, I expect to begin a structured resolution process. The choice of whether that happens privately or through legal channels is yours. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. The timing was coincidental, but the interruption served as a perfect punctuation to my statement. My father rose automatically to answer it. He returned moments later with a startled expression holding a certified envelope. It is for you, he said, extending it toward me. I recognized the return address of the legal assistant's office on base. The documents I had requested earlier, formal templates for restitution agreements and financial accountability, had arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Taking the envelope, I said simply, "Thank you. These will help us move forward constructively." The remainder of the dinner proceeded in uncomfortable waves of forced conversation and awkward silences. Extended family members processed the revelation in various ways. Some offering Emma quiet words of support, others attempting to broker immediate reconciliation, a few simply observing with the fascination reserved for witnessing private family implosions. Through it all, Emma maintained remarkable composure, accepting comfort without seeking pity, answering questions honestly but without elaboration. I had never been prouder of her strength and grace under pressure. Later that night, as guests departed with subdued holiday wishes, Aunt Susan pulled me aside. "I will help ensure they make this right," she promised. "What they did was unconscionable." "Thank you," I replied sincerely. "My goal is resolution, not destruction. Emma still loves them despite everything." "You are a better person than I would be in your position," she observed. "Not better," I corrected. "Just focused on what matters most. Emma needs healing more than I need retribution." As we prepared for bed that night, Emma asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her mind. Will we ever be a normal family again? I considered my answer carefully. We will be a different family, one built on truth and accountability rather than comfortable lies. Whether your grandparents can be part of that depends on their choices now. Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad you came home when you did, Mom." "So am I, sweetheart," I whispered, holding her close. "So am I." The knock at the door on December 26 came precisely at 10 o'clock in the morning. My parents, who had maintained a careful distance during Christmas Day celebrations, exchanged apprehensive glances. My sister Amanda and her husband had arrived minutes earlier, completing the circle of those directly involved in the situation. Emma sat beside me on the sofa, her posture reflecting the confidence our honest conversations had begun to rebuild. Aunt Susan had insisted on being present as a neutral family witness, positioning herself, literally and figuratively, between the opposing sides of the living room. My father opened the door to reveal Mr. Harrington, the attorney from the base legal assistance office, who had agreed to facilitate our discussion. His presence immediately established the seriousness of the proceedings without escalating to courtroom formality. "Thank you all for agreeing to this mediation," Mr. Harrington began after introductions. "My role today is to help structure a conversation that addresses the financial discrepancies that occurred during Cassandra's deployment and establish a framework for resolution." The clinical description of what had happened as financial discrepancies rather than theft or exploitation set a tone of problem-solving rather than punishment. This was deliberate part of the strategy we had discussed to maximize the chances of actual restitution rather than defensive obstruction. For the next 3 hours, we engaged in a methodical process of accountability. My parents, faced with the comprehensive documentation I had gathered and the gentle but firm guidance of Mr. Harrington, gradually abandoned their defensive posture. My father, always more straightforward than my mother, was the first to acknowledge the full reality of their actions. "We did divert the funds," he admitted. "Finally, it started small, using part of the first payment to fix the dishwasher. Then it became easier to justify using more for other household improvements, telling ourselves it benefited Emma indirectly. By the 3rd month, we were treating the money as general income." My mother, tearful but still struggling with full admission, added, "We convinced ourselves we deserved it for taking her in. That childcare was worth compensation." She looked at Emma with genuine remorse. "But we should never have told you. Your mother sent nothing. That was cruel and manipulative." Step by step, Mr. Harrington guided us through a complete accounting of the diverted funds. The total, including the planned cruise that had been fully paid, exceeded the $18,000 I had sent. My parents had literally spent money they had not yet received, anticipating future transfers. The resolution plan took shape with surprising cooperation once the full acknowledgement occurred. My parents agreed to a structured repayment schedule, beginning with the immediate cancellation and refund of the cruise. They would sell my father's new car and return to their previous vehicle. My mother's recent jewelry purchases would be returned or sold. For funds that could not be immediately recovered, they committed to monthly payments of $1,000 until the debt was fully repaid. Mr. Harrington formalized this in a legally binding agreement that included consequences for noncompliance. The most important element from my perspective was the direct apology to Emma. Mr. Harrington wisely suggested this occur without an audience. So my parents spoke privately with Emma while the rest of us stepped onto the porch. When they emerged 20 minutes later, Emma's eyes were red, but her expression was peaceful. Whatever had been said had begun the healing process. "I believe we have a workable resolution," Mr. Harrington concluded, collecting signatures on multiple copies of the agreement. "This provides accountability while preserving family relationships, which I understand is the primary goal." As he prepared to leave, my father asked the question that had clearly been weighing on him. "Could you have pursued criminal charges for this?" Mr. Harrington nodded solemnly. Financial exploitation of a dependent is taken very seriously, particularly when the guardian is entrusted with funds for the dependent's care. The documented deception and the minor's resulting hardship would have made a compelling case. The gravity of what they had narrowly avoided settled visibly on my parents' shoulders. My mother whispered, "Thank you for not taking that route." "This was never about punishment," I replied quietly. "It was about making things right for Emma." In the weeks that followed, our new reality took shape. Emma and I remained in town through New Year's, staying at a hotel rather than my parents' house. This physical separation provided emotional space for everyone to process what had happened while maintaining the family connection Emma still wanted. The financial restitution began immediately. My parents sold the new car within days, applying the proceeds to the outstanding balance. My mother returned unworn clothing and unused household items. My father took on consulting work to supplement the retirement income, enabling the monthly payments. Emma's physical needs were more easily addressed than her emotional ones. We replaced her outdated phone and worn clothing. I insisted on buying back her father's locket from the pawn shop, paying well above market value to compensate for the sentimental loss. Her iPad was replaced along with the books she had sold. The deeper healing required professional guidance. When we returned to base in January, Emma began working with a therapist specializing in trust issues and family dynamics. Initially reluctant, she gradually embraced the process of understanding and processing her feelings of abandonment and betrayal. My sister Amanda reached out in February with her own apology. "I should have questioned what was happening," she admitted during a video call. "I saw the signs but chose to look away because it was easier." "Were you benefiting from the money, too?" I asked directly. Her hesitation answered before her words did. "The bracelet was a gift from Mom. I did not know specifically where the money came from, but I should have questioned how they could afford it when they were supposedly struggling with Emma's expenses." Our relationship remained strained but civil, with potential for improvement through continued honesty. By April, Emma's academic performance had returned to her previous excellence. Freed from the burden of weekend work and financial stress, she rejoined the soccer team and developed new friendships. The resilience of youth combined with proper support enabled her recovery faster than I had dared hope. My parents maintained their repayment schedule with perfect compliance. By the 6-month mark, they had returned nearly $12,000 through various means. More importantly, they respected the boundaries we had established, never pressuring for more access to Emma than she was comfortable giving. When my current assignment ended in June, I requested a transfer to a unit without deployment rotations. This required declining a promotion opportunity, but Emma's stability took precedence over career advancement. We relocated to a small house near the new base, establishing our own home after years of temporary arrangements. Emma's therapist suggested carefully structured visits with my parents as part of the healing process. The first-a-day trip to a neutral location was awkward but productive. My father, always more comfortable with action than words, had prepared a handmade jewelry box to hold a recovered locket. My mother had compiled a scrapbook of Emma's childhood photos, acknowledging the importance of preserving connections to her past. By summer's end, we had established a new normal. Emma spent weekends with friends rather than working. She started high school with confidence and clear boundaries. My parents continued their amends through consistent payments and respectful interactions. My sister and I maintained limited but improving communication. The betrayal would always be part of our family story, but it would not define our future. The painful lessons in accountability, forgiveness, and conditional trust had transformed all of us. Last week, Emma asked if her grandparents could visit for Thanksgiving. "Not staying with us," she clarified, "but maybe dinner together. I think I am ready for that." Her capacity for measured forgiveness humbled me. "If you are ready, then yes," I agreed. Family is complicated, but it is still family. As I reflect on our journey from that shocking moment of what money to today's cautious rebuilding, I am reminded that trust once broken can never be perfectly restored. But something new and potentially stronger can grow in its place. A relationship founded on accountability, clear boundaries, and earned rather than assumed trust. If you have experienced family betrayal or financial exploitation, please know that recovery is possible. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healing. Accountability is not vengeance. It is the foundation of any healthy relationship. And protecting those we love sometimes means making difficult choices that others may not understand.
That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.